Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back.
Wow. A tough one.
Welcome back to the CSTD session. This afternoon, before we take up item 2, allow me to invite Her Excellency Dr. Lea Buendia, Undersecretary of the Department of Science and Technology, the Philippines, to introduce a proposal from her country on cooperation under the CSTD. Excellency, you have the floor.
Excellencies, allow me to present the Philippines is actually brewing up a project and an initiative currently entitled Harnessing STI for Disaster Risk Reduction Workshop. And it is aimed to be held physically in the Philippines, hopefully in the last quarter of this year. The Department of Science and Technology would be pleased to host it in the Philippines. Can I have my slides, please? Thank you. So the Department of Science and Technology would be pleased to host it in the Philippines, supporting the accommodation, airport transfer, and meals of all the participants, at least one representative per member state. The Philippines notes that in May 2019, a side event to the CSTD on the role of engaged science and technology to enhance disaster resilience and empower communities was conducted. It introduced the Sendai framework and its connections to the SDGs and other agreements. Building on this and emphasizing the need to share crucial information, practices, and innovations on disaster risk reduction among member states and across different regions, the Philippines will be organizing this activity. While we will shoulder the expenses locally, the DOST is looking for co-sponsors for this initiative under the CSTD. My slides could not be put up. Okay. The workshop will welcome participants from CSTD member states. The member states shall send at least one representative each, and the participants are expected to be innovators, policymakers, disaster specialists, engineers, urban and environmental planners, and other experts involved in the research, development, and/or utilization of technologies and innovation for disaster risk reduction. The general objective of the workshop is to identify policy recommendations in harnessing science, technology, and innovation in the field of disaster risk reduction. More particularly, the workshop aims to be a platform for CSTD member states to showcase their success stories in developing and utilizing STI in disaster risk reduction, determine common challenges within and among regional groups in harnessing STI for DRR, and provide recommendations to help member states effectively harness STI for DRR. It will consist of one plenary session for panel discussions wherein we expect to hear from STI for disaster risk reduction landscape or ecosystem in various countries covering all regional groups. Poster presentation through a World Cafe format wherein presenters will discuss the poster of their DRR-focused innovation and experiences related to policy that encourage their innovation. And third, after the World Cafe, the participants will be engaged in a working group discussion to exchange insights about the presentations of innovations, the challenges in harnessing STI for DRR, and recommendations on policies that will widen and multiply opportunities. A half-day study tour will also be conducted for participants. They would be visiting Philippine facilities on DRR and may get a chance to see the practical applications of the STI. We are really encouraging all member states to join this activity and also call for possible partners who can help us by co-sponsoring this workshop. Our details are supposed to be flashed, but I will send it to all CSTD members through email. Again, thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that this initiative will strike a bell in every member states. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your presentation and for your invitation as well. And I think it will ring a bell in many countries. Thank you again. And now let us move to item 2, with a high-level panel on progress made in the implementation of and follow-up to the outcomes of the World Summit on the Information Society at the regional and international level. At around 5:30, we will also have a presentation from the chair of the CSCD, presenting the CSCD roadmap for the WSIS Plus 20 review. Before I invite our panelists, let me first invite Ms. Shamika Siriman, Director of the Division of Technology and Logistics, to introduce the report of the Secretary General for this item. Frankly speaking, I have been a bit disappointed this morning. You said that your favorite session was on the cooperation, and I always thought that WSIS was your favorite. Well, anyway, Shamika, you have the floor.
Thank you, Peter. It is also another favorite. You can have many favorites. Thank you so much, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to introduce the report of the Secretary General on the progress made in the implementation and follow-up to the outcomes of the World Summit on the Information Society at the regional and international levels. At the outset, let me say that the report has been prepared by the Secretariat based on information provided by 32 UN entities and other international organizations and stakeholders concerning their efforts to implement WSIS outcomes in 2022. So thank you to all this great partnership. So in this introduction, I will focus on 3 key aspects of the implementation of the WSIS outcomes in a year marked by economic uncertainty, significant developments in the digital space, and conflict, both real world and digital, and also ChatGPT-4. So these are the report is in 3 sections. So these are the changing context of digital cooperation, the impact of conflict and the risk of cyber conflict, and data governance. So the changing context of digital cooperation, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, achieving digital development continues to present serious challenges that require the global community to come together through digital cooperation. For example, the world remains too far away from truly universal inclusion in the digital economy. We still need to fully integrate the digital dimension into actions to address poverty, gender equality, and climate change, and cybersecurity, including cybercrime, raise increasing concerns. And without cooperation, these cannot be addressed. Take the digital divide. Although 63% of the world population is connected, according to the ITU data, least developed countries still only count 27% of their populations as internet users. As the CSTD has noted in the past, the persistent connectivity can lead to a serious development divide, stalling the progress to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So digital cooperation, technology sharing, and partnerships remain crucial for connecting remote and underserved populations. Now, work on the establishment of a global digital compact opens opportunities for positive developments in this regard, as the Secretary General says in his report. The ongoing process of consultations will outline shared principles for an open, free, and secure digital future for all, and which will be the key components of deliberations at the Summit of the Future in 2024. And digital cooperation is recognized as central to this future, and we will hear from the Secretary General's tech envoy a bit later. The CSTD, with its long-standing experience and the stock of knowledge it has accumulated in its work on the WSIS outcomes, enjoys unique advantages to contribute valuably to the success of the GDC. Now, with regard to the impact of conflict and the risk of cyber conflict, the second part of the Secretary General's report, conflicts in which digital technology plays an increasingly central role have become one of the most salient effects of digitalization on society and politics globally. These technologies are becoming increasingly weaponized in sophisticated ways, from cyber attacks that disrupt infrastructure and services to the theft of sensitive information and the destabilizing potential of deep fakes and fake news. Information technologies are increasingly often among the major causes and means of conflict. Countries lacking the cybersecurity infrastructure to protect themselves from these threats are liable to suffer disproportionately. And this is much of the predicament of developing countries. But digital technologies can also provide solutions in conflict situations. They provide tools promoting accountability and accuracy and enable the challenging of dominant narratives. They can also facilitate peace building and help document and discourage human rights abuses. Now on to data governance. Distinguished delegates, the report argues that the multidimensional impact of digital data on all aspects of societies and economies continues to necessitate global conversations around regulation and governance. Areas of concern are wide-ranging, and these include the geographical concentration of digital innovation and data management, problems of cross-border jurisdictions, competition policy, consumer rights, and content moderation, just to name a few. The regulatory challenges created by those questions are very complex, and particularly where the need for international enforcement interacts with differences in national laws and norms. International forums are increasingly concerned with such issues. For example, a growing number of initiatives aim to address the ethical dimensions of emerging technologies such as machine learning and AI. We just heard a few minutes before. And they all raise the question of the risk of fragmentation in the treatment of these matters. The emerging data divide on top of the connectivity divide is among the most salient examples of how, as noted earlier, a digital connectivity divide can ultimately lead to a significant development divide. There are as risks that the data economy will be permanently dominated by a few stakeholders from a handful of technologically advanced economies, even though their activities directly impact the lives and economic prospects of citizens in developing economies. With its long-standing role in digitalization and development, this commission should be able to bring stakeholders together to collaboratively navigate these complex questions and help develop solutions that serve the global public interest. So in closing, distinguished delegates, as the Secretary General pointed out in his report on WSIS, although today's information society differs significantly from what was envisaged in 2005, the WSIS's commitments to building a people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society remains highly relevant and not achieved. The General Assembly will review the WSIS in 2025. Given the CSTD's central role in 2 decades of follow-up and monitoring of WSIS implementation, the Commission should be able to help member states and other stakeholders to use the review to achieve a clear and actionable understanding of the persistent and emerging challenges of digitalization and development, the possibilities that were realized as well as those that were missed, and the new ones that are coming our way. It could thus help strengthen global consensus on the vision of our digital society's future and how that vision can be articulated with the Global Digital Compact and other global processes. So to conclude, I wish to convey our gratitude to all the WSIS stakeholders that work tirelessly on the implementation and the WSIS vision. It is to them that this commission, as the focal point of the United Nations for Science and Technology for Development, has a vital responsibility to provide an inclusive space for reflecting and working on the present and the future of the digital development. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Siriman, for your introductory remarks and introducing the report of the Secretary General. And I'm sure that we are aware of our responsibility towards the WSIS community, and probably it will be reflected in our resolution as well. Now, let me turn to our distinguished panelists. I'm told that Mr. Amandeep Gill and Mr. Thomas Lamanauskas have another commitment and will have to leave our meeting earlier. I will open the floor for an interactive discussion with them right after the presentations and before we move to the presentation of our two other panelists. I wish to remind all panelists that you have each 10 minutes. Now I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Amandeep Gill, envoy on technology of the United Nations Secretary General, who will be joining us remotely. I'm glad to see you, Amandeep. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you very much, Peter. It's a great honor and a privilege to join you for this discussion today. And thank you to Shamika for introducing the report of the Secretary General. The one thing that I would like to underline from that report is the SG's mention of the new context that we are all in. That context is full of new opportunities, but it's also full of challenges. And the only way we can seize the opportunities and work through the challenges is by reinforcing digital cooperation across multiple stakeholders. And that brings me to the legacy of WSIS. The WSIS has a proud and ongoing legacy. There are three aspects to that legacy which are worth remembering. The first one is the need for a comprehensive 360-degree global conversation on digital technologies. At that time, we had more of an emphasis on ICTs, but today we talk of these technologies more in the context of the digital transformation. So the need for a regular, global, comprehensive conversation. The other legacy is the multi-stakeholder legacy of WSIS. It enshrined that principle of multi-stakeholder participation in the Tunis outcome. And we are building on that legacy, and that legacy has proven to be very, very helpful. The third WSIS legacy to be underlined, to be remembered today, is precisely what Shamika said. This approach, which is people-centered, human-centered, this approach that's inclusive, that's about leaving no one behind, and this approach that has a development orientation. So an orientation, an approach that's rooted in the UN Charter, in the Universal Declaration on Human Rights and other human rights covenants, and the Agenda 2030. Now, the questions that we have before us today in this panel, they require some reflection in the new context as the SG has highlighted. A part of that context is the process leading up to the Summit of the Future in 2024. One of the 11 tracks for that summit that seeks to reboot multilateralism, reinforce multilateral cooperation, and protect our planet is the digital track. And I'm aware that the distinguished representative of Sweden would be speaking later during this session on behalf of one of the co-facilitators, Sweden, the other being Rwanda. So a track is now well underway with Sweden and Rwanda co-leading it. And we've had 3 rounds of consultations with stakeholders and 1 deep dive into the issue of digital inclusion and connectivity. Other deep dives will follow. And there'll be a report, there'll be an issues paper at the end of it in summer, which will allow the ministers in 2023 to assess the issue comprehensively and guide us for the next stage on the negotiation of the Global Digital Compact. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other aspect is obviously the very, very important meeting today that we have this year on the SDGs, the midterm review of Agenda 2030, the SDGs Summit. And I'm sure we'll have some sobering perspectives there because of the ongoing challenges we face. We are slipping back on the targets. And at the same time, there is a growing awareness that without leveraging digital technologies, we will not be able to catch up on the lost progress, and we will not be able to accelerate towards the 2030 goals. So there is a sobering side, but there is also an opportunity which we need to seize. And in this, I think there are some mindset changes that are involved, and I'll get that down to that towards the end of my remarks. The third contextual aspect to be remembered, and Shamika also touched upon that, is the changing technology landscape. There is a shift in the way artificial intelligence is being developed. The large language models, and ChatGPT is just one incarnation of that, but there are many other models that are coming out. There's a kind of an arms race among the private companies to get these products that can be used by the masses out into the market. So there's a lot at stake, and still we don't know all the implications. There are some exciting possibilities. I have personally seen how a large language model can facilitate the work of a community health worker in a resource-poor setting. It requires some interesting prompt engineering and ways to handle the hallucination problem in large language models, but it is doable today. And there's also prospects around SMEs being able to use this to be able to compete better in the digital economy. At the same time, we have risks, and frankly, there are some things we still don't understand in terms of the impact on the jobs landscape. There is a Goldman Sachs study. I don't know what to say about the figures, but apparently, it is clear that our institutions will have to gear up to deal with some of the broader societal and economic impacts of these new technologies. So again, coming back to digital cooperation, that is a must, and we must reinforce it using the opportunity of the Global Digital Compact in particular to build a shared vision and also a common action framework so that we can get up better for the future. Now, I want to conclude by mentioning some of those mindset changes that we need. I think, firstly, we need to shift from the ICTs for development paradigm, from this solutions-oriented work that we've been looking at. How can we deploy ICTs and other technologies to solve specific problems, to a deeper enabling of human and institutional capacity to leverage the digital transformation. It is a subtle but very important distinction. For instance, when we talk of the digital divide, and if we look at the digital divide only from the perspective of connecting everyone to the internet, it's like, building libraries and stacking them up with books and expecting that knowledge and value derived from that knowledge will automatically flow. That is not going to happen, and therefore we need an equal emphasis on content that is contextually relevant, that is meaningful in the languages and the context of the users. We also need demand side focus in terms of digital public goods, digital public infrastructure, which have had their moment during the COVID pandemic. Those who had good DPIs did better. So you need a more sophisticated understanding of the digital divide. Also the challenges that prevent certain communities, women, the elderly, linguistic minorities, and other disadvantaged groups from taking full advantage of what's out there. If you're going to be faced with explicit content or abusive content when you dial in for a class, and if you're a girl or a woman, you're going to be inhibited from participating fully in that. So we need to look at those aspects of the digital divide, and eventually we need to look at the data and AI divide. That is very, very important for equity in terms of value creation, in terms of participation in the digital economy. So we need to broaden our understanding of the digital divide, move away from an ICTs, connectivity plus solutions paradigm to more of an empowering of individuals and institutions paradigm. The second mindset shift we need is to work together jointly, and this goes also for the UN system, in being more of one UN, one international community in things digital. There is a problem of fragmentation in terms of governance, fragmentation in terms of promotional approaches. At the very least, and this should be done, this is a no-brainer, we should be exchanging national experiences. We should be learning from each other and putting those experiences into the kind of meta-knowledge that's helpful for countries, for institutions, for public servants who are struggling to understand the digital transformation to do better. I think we are underachieving on that. So 1 + 1 is today 1.5, whereas we ideally should be 1 + 1 is 11. So how do we reinforce that oneness, that jointedness, that strategic collaboration that allows us to deliver better for different stakeholders? So those are a couple of the mindset shifts that we need. And again, coming back to the GDC, it's an opportunity to build up literacy across different subject areas. Cybersecurity was mentioned, often that's dealt in one silo. Digital public goods, digital public infrastructure dealt with in another silo, whereas the two come together. And some countries are already looking at protection of digital public infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure included, from a comprehensive protection of the psychological infrastructure in terms of misinformation, disinformation, as a comprehensive entity. So let's take that approach and let's learn from what is working on the ground. Some member states have shown that it is possible to leverage a comprehensive, horizontal, cross-cutting view of digital to drive transformational change. And that is something that we can learn from. We can learn from each other. We can learn as the UN system itself. And my office is ready to help with those mindset shifts. Thank you very much. And I return the floor back to you, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Gill, for your remarks and enlightening us about the progress made in the GDCs and the deep dives. And especially, I am very attentive to the new mathematics you have shared with us about 1 + 1 = 11. Probably we are in a different system. Now, I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Thomas Lamanauskas, Deputy Secretary General of the ITU, for his remarks. Thomas, you have the floor.
So thank you very much, Peter. And I definitely can say this is my favorite session, because so this one, so definitely, so if that couldn't compete, well, others couldn't compete, but then definitely also great to speak about such distinguished speakers who lay out the land of digital development today and where is our digital world today and some of the challenges we're facing. And I think my today's remarks will focus a little bit on implementation and what we're doing to achieve that digital development is moving forward. So it's indeed, the pleasure the pleasure to be here. And let me also thank UNCTAD for inviting us here as partners, of course, consistent partners in this journey of WSIS implementation. And again, also, and I'll mention in a minute as well, great to be in the company of UNCTAD, the UNESCO, and also partners in organizing the annual WSIS Forum, which I'll talk in a minute as well about. And of course, we also have other partners such as UNDP and other UN family to thank in that as well. So, of course, when we look at the WSIS and we look at the roots of the WSIS, it goes a long way back. So, indeed, from our perspective, already in 1998, in our plenipotentiary conference in Minneapolis, there was a request from Tunisia's government at that time to request for a framework for World Summit Information Society, and that was. Since then, that was our roots where we started being engaged in this process and actually helping to facilitate its first creation and then implementation. And now this year we've reached 20 years from the first WSIS summit in 2003 and this in the city, and of course now on a path or in the process of WSIS plus 20, of course, like a 2-year process, as that was the same with the WSIS summits, with a 2005, of course, in Tunisia, concluding the twin summits. And of course, we went a long way since then. We at that time we had around 12% of internet users around the world, and we spoke about huge potential to use that. And my boss, Secretary General Doreen Bogdan, in WSIS Forum, quoted Kofi Annan and his quote on big hopes, reflecting big hope that digital development will contribute to the world at that time already. Now, in some ways, we're in a different world because, that world seems a long way back in terms of technology, in terms of inclusion and other aspects. With the 2/3 of humanity now included in the digital world, at least through connectivity, but we also, in a way, still in the place where we still see the big road ahead of us, and with lots of both opportunities and challenges. So some things haven't fully changed. And of course, for us, WSIS action lines, at that time agreed in Geneva summit, is actually the key framework of the progress on that digital development. And as WSIS framework came before the Sustainable Development Framework, we also made an effort to ensure that, together with other stakeholders, that WSIS framework fully contributes and fully is integrated with Sustainable Development Goals agenda, and now really place to make sure that digital development really boosts the Sustainable Development Goal agenda. Actually, these days, instead of the word boost, we more often use, regretfully, the word rescue. But in any case, that only highlights how important for us to push on digital development. And I think Sharmik also referred to that as well before. So, as I mentioned before, from our perspective, WSIS Forum remains a crucial component of the WSIS process, providing an inclusive and equitable platform to discuss, network, share best practices on ICTs for sustainable development, as well as broader digital sustainable development. I think Mandeep here introduced some difference in the terminology here, so I'm just referring to that as well. And we just 2 weeks ago, we had the WSIS Forum from 13th to 17th of March in Geneva, which brought multi-stakeholder community exactly for that purpose. And I want to report that in that week, and it was hybrid week, both in person, and it was great to see a lot of you there. And as well as virtually, we had in total 2,700 participants representing 150 countries worldwide. We have more than 250 events, including a lot of innovative formats as well. Open talks, open space talks, thematic workshops, knowledge cafes, and so on. We had a good participation from high-level meetings. We had 46 ministers as our ministerial roundtable. We had more than 50 ambassadors from Geneva and elsewhere in our ambassadorial breakfast. We had 50 mayors in our cities convened to discuss the city's contribution to digital development. We also had a lot of showcased contributions to the really innovation through 18 WSIS prize winners and 72 WSIS champions. They were selected out of 900 submissions, and actually I'm very proud to say that around 1.5 million people voted online to select those champions, and it really showed the great engagement here. We had 55 winners of the WSIS Kelsey Aging Prize. we had 4 WSIS Forum 2023 hackathon winners and that hackathon was on digital gov hack, and so specifically focusing on public services as well as we had different other awards, including WSIS Digital Service Design Prize. We also had more than 30 exhibitors showcasing ICTs for sustainable development. And to make sure that we not only work, but also have time for mindfulness, I have to thank Indian Permanent Mission of bringing yoga for the first time to the WSIS Forum as well. So we also had time to reflect and relax and actually refresh our minds as we continued the great engagements as well. So WSIS Forum featured also a number of special tracks, including ICTs in youth, gender mainstreaming, emerging technologies for sustainable development goals, and Industry 4.0, as well as well-being and happiness, accessibility, older persons, cybersecurity, indigenous peoples and cultures, sports, as well as some new tracks such as ICTs and clean technologies for climate, as well as digital citizenship and public services, really covering a very wide gamut of the digital development. We also had another, having shattered first glass ceiling last year with our first women Secretary General. We also this year had a first women chairperson of the WSIS Forum, and the person of Dr. Emilia Stojmenova-Duh, Minister of Digital Transformation from Republic of Slovenia as well, who will continue to lead WSIS Forum in related process up to the next year's WSIS Forum. So there were some key highlights which I would like to emphasize, especially, so first of all, from our ministerial meetings, we had very strong messages on ICT's rescuing 2030 agenda for sustainable development, with a strong emphasis that we need to harness the power of digital to really progress on sustainable development agenda, including through such initiatives as Partner to Connect, that we gather the global stakeholder community to work together on digital inclusion. And so far, we already are very happy with more than 30 billion pledges collected. We also kind of in response to that call as well, we also ITU will, together with partners, will spearhead the SDG Digital Day in this September in New York, just before the SDG Summit that Amandeep has referred to really continue that conversation, but also provide the opportunity to push for digital in the sustainable development agenda. With ministers also highlighted potential of space technologies as a driver of sustainable development, as well as emphasized on complementary nature of WSIS Plus 20 review that we're embarking on, and global digital compact process that as well Amandeep just explained us as well. I think that brings me to this, actually. So we also were very happy to offer WSIS Forum platform for the Global Digital Compact consultations and gathering multi-stakeholder input, to be able to leverage that multi-stakeholder community gathered in WSIS to really provide that rich content to Global Digital Compact. So we're very thankful for Amandeep to being there with us, as well as co-facilitators of the Global Digital Compact, Clever Gatet, Ambassador of Rwanda, as well as Anna Karin Ennerstrom, Ambassador of Sweden from New York, as well as being there with us and collecting input there. As well as, so on a broader context, and that's exactly, Global Digital Compact, of course, it was in everyone's minds and tongues as well. And we heard a lot of messages related to that there, including the importance of Global Digital Compact to be built on the existing frameworks and initiatives as well, and leveraging that history of the WSIS of 20 and now 20 plus years, strengthening commitments already made by member states and other stakeholders in this process, in leveraging and strengthening existing UN platforms, as well as ensuring that the global digital world is inclusive and sustainable, as well as people-centric, with a big emphasis on human rights. And as well as, I think that was mentioned before by Amandeep, that it really re-emphasize importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration in digital cooperation process. I just also would like to mention that, of course, WSIS Forum is complementary to other processes that we see around, that we see within our family. So, of course, Internet Governance Forum, it was with where we align very closely on process, and we participated. You has been active participant there as well. And of course, we were present in IGF in 2022 in Ethiopia, and looking forward to our strong presence in IGF 2023 in Kyoto, Japan. So the last process of this is, of course, that I want to mention is partnership and measuring ICT for development. Again, ensuring that we know, you only know how far you've got if you measure this, and how far is left also if you measure this. And I think it's important partnership that we're working with partners, ensuring that basically digital data on digital development is available for us all. So now coming to a bit of the start, coming to the close, I think, of course, now we're embarking in the most important in our site is WSIS Plus 20 review. And of course, we're ready as we closed WSIS 2023 forum. That is now our key and important priority in this regard. And I'm happy to highlight that next year, we already have even dates for the WSIS high-level event that will be organized in cooperation with the Swiss Confederation. And that will be already, please mark your calendars, from 27th to 31st of May, 2024. And we're really looking forward to that as being a key point in assessing the WSIS 20-year journey and rebooting the process for the years to come. We, of course, will be issuing, in preparation of that, WSIS Plus 20 progress report, as well as other materials as necessary to guide us conversations. And of course, we'll contribute to the CSTD discussions in that part as well. So we're really looking forward to working together with you as we now embark on this, and these times when it's not only work as usual, we know, and the challenges were laid out, the challenges in front of us are big, but we've seen what digital can provide in terms of opportunities. So I think the biggest challenge is not to be able to avail ourselves of those opportunities, and we still have too many people who are excluded from those. So we need to work together to really progress on that, and I'm looking forward to working with you all. Thank you very much. And just to note, Peter, so then, yes, I'll have to leave, but I'll leave you also, I'll leave Gitanjali Shah here always. So she's our lead on WSIS. So if I don't manage to respond to any questions, she will be here to always respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm sure that she will be able, but how you still have about 5 minutes. Let me open the floor for your comments and remarks to the two panelists we have just heard. So please, your questions should be addressed to Amandeep and Thomas. I can identify Russia.
Господин председатель, за предоставленное слово. Хотела бы выразить благодарность выступавшим, которые в своих выступлениях дали нам много пищи для размышлений. Сегодня, как и на позапрошлой неделе в ходе форума ВОО, в контексте обсуждения прогресса, достигнутого в осуществлении решений и последующей деятельности по итогам ВОО, мы, естественно, слышали много упоминаний глобального цифрового договора, о котором говорят в тесной увязке со знакомым нам на протяжении 20 лет процессом ВОО. В связи с этим я хотела бы задать ряд, как мне представляется, важных вопросов, четких ответов на которые, к сожалению, не находятся на официальных веб-ресурсах, посвященных GDC, и они не звучали в выступлениях уважаемых панелистов, ну, по крайней мере, в тех выступлениях, которые мне посчастливилось услышать. Сделаю смелое предположение, что ответы на эти вопросы могли бы содействовать всем заинтересованным сторонам, как можно более эффективно внести свой вклад в работу над договором. Итак, мой первый вопрос касается того, какая процедура предполагается для договора. Например, мы знаем, что существует глобальный договор ООН, он для бизнеса, государства в нем не участвуют. Или есть глобальный договор о миграции, который для государств, он принимался консенсусом на межправительственной конференции и выносился на Генассамблею ООН. Таким образом, работа над договором будет вестись по какой-то существующей модели, по приведенным примерам, или в ином новом формате. И, соответственно, из этого вопроса вытекает мой следующий вопрос. Мы говорим о GDC в контексте саммита будущего, запланировано на следующий год, и согласно тем документам, которые мы видим в части саммита, его итоговым документом планируется пакт во имя будущего. Таким образом, хотелось бы понять, GDC относится к саммиту или это независимый процесс? и каким образом GDC взаимосвязан с пактом будущего, который будет разработан и утвержден, как мы предполагаем, в ходе саммита. Далее. Как будет проходить участие государств в подготовке текста глобального договора? Будет ли это обсуждение очным или только онлайн? Будут ли физические межправительственные сессии? И если они будут, то сколько их будет, когда и где они будут проводиться? И, соответственно, здесь возникает вопрос, в какой форме будет подготовлен итоговый документ, как он будет одобряться и кем. Это будет отдельный документ, это будет приложение к пакту, будет ли он приниматься государствами или нет, будет ли соответствующая конференция, будет ли это консенсус или голосование, и будет ли документ выноситься на уровень Генеральной Ассамблеи, и будет ли подписание и в каком формате. Ну и, соответственно, если этот документ будет подписываться государствами, а в некоторых сессиях, посвященных договору, такие упоминания были, будет ли это церемония подписания формальная уже одобренного договора, или это будет какой-то установленный формат. Ну и в завершении, в целом, конечно, хотелось бы услышать мнение уважаемых участников сессии о том, как связаны все процессы, то есть процесс УИО, ЦУР и глобальный договор, особенно учитывая, что взаимосвязь процессов УИО и ЦУР очень четко отражена в соответствующей матрице, которая разрабатывалась МСЭ и другими координаторами направлений деятельности в УИО. Прошу прощения за столь обширный комментарий и благодарю за предоставленное слово.
Thank you, Russia. I think it's not a $1 million question. It's 3 times. Let me turn to Amandeep before he has to leave, because I think you have to leave at 4. So can you touch on some of the questions which have been asked? Amandeep, I'm told that you are muted.
Yes, I couldn't unmute myself earlier. Now I've been allowed by the system to unmute myself. So thank you to the Russian Federation for the question. Yes, I know there are a lot of questions in that question, but what I have done is to put 2 links in the chat. One specific question was, is there a website? Is there a place where we can go and seek information about what's going on? Yes, there is. So on the Tech Envoy's website, you have this section where you can see all the documents, the various dates for the events, all the planning is there. The background documents are there as well. And I have posted a link to another background document, which I would request the Russian Federation delegate to look at. And that is the resolution on the modalities for the Summit of the Future. So this resolution was passed by the General Assembly in October 2022, and it has the answers to probably 80 to 90% of the questions she asked. So there is a process that's been defined by the General Assembly under the authority given to the President of the General Assembly. He has appointed 2 co-facilitators, Rwanda and Sweden, on this specific issue, the Global Digital Compact. There are other co-facilitators, there are other processes, and they all come together at the Summit of the Future, where the leaders will decide on the adoption of these documents, including the Global Digital Compact. Just to be clear, at this point, we are in a consultation phase. So different stakeholders have the opportunity to submit their views, to participate in those consultations, and 70+ contributions are already there on the website. So I invite delegations to look at those. They are from governments, they are from private sector, they are from other stakeholders. And some of these consultations also involve discussions outside of New York. So we've had several sessions in Geneva, for instance, also in Kenya, in Mexico, for the Africa and the Americas region, in India recently. So we are also within the limitation, the resources going out with the co-facilitators to listen to as many diverse voices as possible. Lastly, I see a remark, Iliaka Salion in the chat. There are two separated by an and. So one is about the website and the other is about the resolution, which provides a clarification on some of the questions raised by the distinguished delegate of the Russian Federation. Thank you.
Thank you, Amandeep. I can identify USA.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'd like to thank the presentations this morning from CSCD and ITU and the UN Tech Envoy concerning both the challenges and the opportunities we face on many issues, and as well as the many activities across the UN system and outside the UN system that are already addressing some of this through some very good work. I just know just this week we have CSCD, there's the ITU CPM across the street. Apparently there's a bunch of watchmakers also in town, but there was the GDC deep dives earlier this week. The United States has an event in Washington on tech for democracy related to the Summit for Democracy. And already this month, there's been meetings of the IGF and the ITU and the Global Digital Compact, ICANN, WSIS Forum, as was briefed, and many others. And so, I know I've made the comment, it's like the movie, there's everything everywhere all at once, seems to be the kind of approach across the UN system on tech. So a lot of good work's happening, but there's a lot of it, and it's very challenging to kind of keep for anyone, any member state, any stakeholder, to kind of keep up with all that good work. So my question, or my comment perhaps, I think as we embark on important work like the GDC, like WSIS Plus 20, ultimately the global stakeholder community and member states are going to have to figure out how to make all this work. But I think where there could be a good role for the UN and seeing ITU and the Tech Envoy, I saw the IGF secretary back here and UNCTAD and others, is to identify or to help stakeholders navigate a lot of these different processes and to help share information about the work that is already going on. I think that it is often hard to, as I said, it's hard to follow. It's often happening in silos and with experts, which is all appropriate. But as we consider kind of global agreements and shared principles and things of that nature, more information, helping to navigate that, I think is a helpful resource that would help improve the quality of any products coming out of WSIS or GDC or some of the other discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I think the Tech Envoy gave us some links to the websites and some of the documents. I know that the basic documents for WSIS are available, for instance, on the ITU website, among others, probably on UN websites as well. I highly recommend you to reread all these documents, and you will be surprised to find out how valid they are still. I can identify Saudi Arabia.
شكرا سيد الرئيس، وبداية نتقدم بالشكر الجزيل للسيد أمانديب مبعوث الأمين العام الرقمي، السيد أمانديب وليس السيدة، والسيد توماس نائب الأمين العام للاتحاد. أعتقد أن هناك جهود كثيرة على مستوى الأمم المتحدة فيما يتعلق بالمجال الرقمي، لكن التداخل الذي يحدث الآن ما بين القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات والجلوبال ديجيتال امباكت نعتقد أنه قد يسبب بعض المهام الإضافية للدول الأعضاء. على سبيل المثال الجدول الذي تم إرساله من قبل الميسرين، السفير الرواندي والسويدي، نجد أن هناك مواضيع مشتركة. على سبيل المثال إدارة الإنترنت. هل يتم المناقشات هنا في لجنة تسخير العلم والتكنولوجيا أم في الفعالية التي تقام الأسبوع القادم أو اللي بعده؟ وهل هي تحت مظلة القمة العالمية أم تحت مظلة قمة المستقبل؟ لا أعتقد أن هذا الازدواجية في الأعمال وفي التكاليف أمر حميد. أعتقد أن على المندوبين في نيويورك الفصل ما بين ما يتم مناقشته تحت مظلة القمة العالمية، وأن هناك عملية إجرائية سوف تقودها الأمم المتحدة، وسوف يكون هناك دور للجنة تسخير العلم والتكنولوجيا والمنظمات المتخصصة. وأنا أعتقد على المبعوث الأمين العام أن ينظر مرة أخرى في تلك الموضوعات المتشابكة، وأن يتم الفصل ما بين تلك الموضوعات ما بين الإجراءين أو المسارين. شكرا.
Thank you, Mansour. I have no more requests for the floor, so I suggest that we move on and continue with our next panelist. I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Paul Mitchell, Chair of the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group Internet Governance Forum, who will join us remotely. Paul, you have the floor. I think you are muted.
Is this working?
Yes, it's perfect now.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be able to chat with you today from the West Coast of the United States in Seattle, Washington, where it's just coming up in the early morning start. I don't want to repeat all of the great work that was just done by Thomas in particular, but I wanted to note in particular the Internet Governance Forum, which I have the current chair of at the moment. And the Internet Governance Forum has had since its inception at the WSIS, the original WSIS, it's been at the forefront, sort of the heart of internet governance and digital cooperation. And as we're now looking forward to this year's IGF to be held next at the end of the year in Kyoto, Japan, in October, I wanted to share with you some information about what the IGF is now and how you can engage and participate. We've had a working definition of internet governance since 2005, created at the WSIS. And one of the amazing things about it, and Peter, you just mentioned as well, the original documents about internet governance that came out of the WSIS process are still incredibly valuable and very prescient if you read them from this vantage point here almost 20 years later. So anyways, the IGF has become more than a conference. It's really a platform and an ecosystem, including substantial intersessional engagement, working together with stakeholders from around the world. This is a critical part of this thing, is that it grows organically just to address the real world problems and issues that are up for grabs. And each year works based on what's current and what's emerging. And we take time to take stock of the environment through an open process, and then to distill that to key themes and sub-themes, ensure that we have coherence and relevance. And so we've just come through a process in Vienna, where we had a meeting and a meeting of the multi-stakeholder advisory group. And during that meeting, we came up with the themes based on input through an open process for this year's IGF, which is going to be, the theme is the internet we want, empowering all people, recognizing the centrality of the internet to all of our lives. So that's the linchpin that starts the process. But beyond that, we want to have cohesion around some of the biggest challenges and issues that that people are facing with the internet, and the internet are facing with people, and the digitalization of the universe as well. So we have 8 sub-themes on which program will be built this year. AI and emerging technologies, avoiding internet fragmentation, cybersecurity, cybercrime, and online safety, data governance and trust, digital divides and inclusion, global digital governance and cooperation in human rights and freedoms, and sustainability and environment. By the way, we can change the slide. Because this process is governed by these core principles of open, bottom-up, inclusive, transparent, non-commercial, community-centered process driven by all the stakeholder groups and stakeholder participation that covers the gamut from A to Z. Taken together, all these themes for this year will be the organizing blocks for the various sessions. And we'll be inviting the community to submit session proposals in early April, so it's not too early to begin planning. Next slide. We've just come off a great internet governance forum in Ethiopia. It's capped 18 years worth of work. And you can see here in this panoply of issues and participants and activity, all aimed at the strengthening and retention of an open, bottom-up, and inclusive, transparent internet governance approach. Next slide. These are the sub-themes and the main theme for this year, and proposals in early April on the themes and the sub-themes. And next slide. So just to give you a sense of the work of the IGF, it's not, as I mentioned, it's more than a conference. It's a platform. So we've got best practice forums, we've got networks, meaningful access. We have workshops on fragmentation and artificial intelligence, and we have 24 dynamic coalitions that are focused on accessibility, blockchain, child rights, connectivity, internet values, a whole host of things. So these are all slots and opportunities for driving towards consensus on some of these important and very difficult issues. The internet is not static, and neither is the IGF. So we have a focus on capacity development efforts, and particularly, it's already been mentioned by Thomas, tracks for youth and parliamentarians. And one thing I want to just leave you all with is an action item, is to take a look at what is the summing up of the learnings and a call to action that comes out of the IGF. And this last one has a wide range of messages that have been assembled and cataloged and placed out there for everyone to take a look at and work together to realize improvement. But summing up, it's the learnings and the calls to action and a great resource. So in terms of participation, it's not too early to begin planning for this October's IGF, and it's not too early to begin planning opening sessions and workshops and getting involved in the dynamic coalitions, etc. And you can subscribe to the IGF newsletter and community-centered mailing lists, or just email igf@un.org for information about how to participate. And with that, I'll stop because I think I would be repeating everything that has already been said. So last slide. This is just to give you a sense of the footprint that IGF has managed to expand into. You can see it's all in every population center and on every continent. And I thank you very much for your attention and hope to see lots of participation.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for giving us information about the work you are doing. I think you are doing a great job leading the MAG, and I'm happy to report that the recommendations given by the CSTD working group on the improvement of the IGF are being implemented. And unfortunately, I couldn't attend the Addis Ababa meeting. However, I hope I can attend the Kyoto IGF, and I recommend to all of you, if you can, just go and see it for yourself, what IGF is about. So thank you again. And let me turn to Ms. Anita Gurumurthy, Executive Director of IT for Change in India. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you. Thank you so much to Your Excellencies and distinguished representatives. We meet today with a sense of hopeful urgency about the upcoming milestones in the UN system, geared to discuss digital issues. In fact, one may ask, is there anything not implicated in the digital society? The report from the UN Secretary General notes this quite simply, and I quote, "It is increasingly difficult to separate digital from non-digital activity in government, business, and individual behavior." So as we move towards the WSIS +20 mark, digital public policy issues have expanded infinitely. Our tryst with the technological epoch is full on, yet the business of enhanced cooperation among member states, going back to the Tunis agenda of the World Summit on the Information Society, remains unfinished. This may be unsurprising. The digital, after all, is a lever of power, and it is no accident that those who control these technologies have little incentive to change the status quo. The debate often slides into voluntary ethics, due diligence, and risk mitigation. The idea of risks, useful as it may be, is inadequate. In a world of worry, as the Human Development Report described our shared existence last year, hunger, despair, and suffering are not incidental risks that can be fixed. They are the consequences of unaccountable actions by some, foisted on the majority. The digital paradigm is therefore not merely unequal, but extremely unjust, with all things tech, fintech, edtech, agtech, govtech, media tech, and more, representing an undemocratic juggernaut. We can least afford to sustain this digital democratic deficit. We are not here to fix the collateral risks of digital innovation. We are here with the singular commitment to revamp an unjust paradigm. The proposed UN Global Digital Compact to establish an open, free, inclusive, and secure digital future for all is an opportunity for governments and stakeholders to revitalize international cooperation. This is what the report of the Secretary General attests to. What I believe is that the compact should work in the following directions as a precursor to the WSIS Plus 20 review. Firstly, it must initiate consensus for a global digital human rights constitution. Secondly, it must meaningfully internationalize internet governance. Thirdly, it must effectively govern global data public goods. And fourthly, it must mobilize public financing to galvanize digital innovation ecosystems. Firstly, the nature of individual and collective autonomy needs to be articulated afresh to be commensurate with the data and AI epoch. Also, echoing UNCTAD's call, the right to development and people's self-determination also needs a similar rearticulation. The impunity of transnational digital corporations requires urgent action through mandatory obligations in the development and deployment of new data and AI innovations in all jurisdictions of their operation. Only then can we realize the spirit of caution in the UN Secretary General's roadmap for global digital cooperation that advances in artificial intelligence-related technologies must not be used to erode human rights, deepen inequality, or exacerbate existing discrimination. The category of digital human rights proposed by the Secretary General's roadmap requires some rethinking so that we move beyond the idea of applying human rights online. Post-human life needs new categories of rights that address our coterminous existence offline and online, including the right to connectivity and data public goods, the right not to be forgotten, the right to be represented or not in digital systems, data rights for algorithmic work environments, and so on. Crucially, the data rights agenda cannot stop with privacy and personal data protection, but must promote economic, social, and cultural rights implicated in network data ecosystems, extending to the rights to decent living, health, education, enjoyment of the benefits of scientific progress, and so on. Secondly, to meaningfully internationalize internet governance, it's imperative that the internet as a global commons is governed democratically. A new arrangement to oversee the technical governance of the internet, an issue that was dropped from the policy table at the WSIS moment, is indeed long overdue. Thirdly, to effectively govern global data public goods, we must put equity and benefit sharing at the heart of a renewed institutional governance framework. The idea of data as global public goods only entrenches power in the hands of a few. Under the existing intellectual property regime, processed data and data-based intelligence can be enclosed in perpetuity. Open may not equal public benefit. Three interrelated aspects are important in the provisioning of global public goods: financing and burden sharing, mutual restraint, and coordination and global standards. Given the global asymmetries in data capabilities, it may be useful to consider rules for varying contributions from different groups of actors, such as, for instance, common but differentiated responsibilities explored in various international negotiations. Controls on who can access global data public goods and under what conditions are essential in order to prevent free riding and consolidation. Additionally, the Global Digital Compact must reclaim the WSIS mandate for an enabling environment by doing three things. A, recognizing the autonomy of nation states for data infrastructure development. B, setting clear boundaries for the operations of the data market and to protect human rights. And C, creating an institutional mechanism to maximize the public and social value of data. Finally, without committed public financing at the international level for platform and data infrastructures, as well as foundational digital public goods, low and middle income countries struggling with rising debt burdens and shrinking fiscal resources cannot secure their futures. The multi-stakeholder model for provisioning digital public goods has more often than not opened up markets in the global south to foreign digital capital, not doing much for domestic digital innovation. As the experiences of digital health and agriculture tech sectors reveal, market-led innovation does not tackle real developmental needs, as there is a divergence between development and commercial value in many cases. The majority of agtech investments tend to be concentrated in segments of the agriculture value chain that are most profitable to corporate farming, such as market linkages, rather than farmers' knowledge needs. AI applications in healthcare have brazenly ignored representativity for sex, gender, race, and ethnicity in data-based disease tracking and intervention during the pandemic. Commercial actors in AI also tend to underinvest in the crucial work of good quality data collection and annotation, given that this is time-consuming, invisible to track, and often done under investor pressure to move fast due to margins. So we need a new paradigm. The digital development tax mechanism proposed by the UN Secretary General in his 2021 report, Our Common Agenda, must be set up and used to finance a new work program for public digital infrastructure in developing countries. The language of capacity building and technology transfer often eclipses the structural inequities that lock certain countries in perpetual dependence and often without recourse to remedies in the event of societal harms. What is needed is capability, investing in a dynamic of sustainable, people-centric local economies. The international financial institutions need to measure up to this challenge. So to conclude, the UN Secretary General's report to the CSTD in January 2023 does note that the consensus produced from the Global Digital Compact, especially on directions for the governance of the digital commons, needs to be actioned through a new mode of global digital cooperation. We are hopeful that this will translate into a meaningful multi-constituency engagement centered on a people-centric, inclusive, development-oriented information society that Ms. Sirimane pointed out is not yet here. Meanwhile, the WSIS Plus 20 review must institute a new institutional process through the establishment of a new UN body on digital issues to create a home within the multilateral system for ensuring system-wide coordination and coherence on digital issues. This home is necessary to preserve and advance a shared vision of digital human rights, data justice, and the full realization of the SDGs in the AI order. The role of the UN is at a crossroads, and our expectations vary high. But democracy, global or otherwise, is about the art of the impossible. Even otherwise, a world of worry cannot be rescued with half-hearted attempts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gurumurthy, for your remarks. Just reacting to the last comment concerning a UN body, I am not very optimistic about that. Now, we will now hear remarks by Her Excellency, Ms. Matu Joyini, Chair of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, 66, and Ambassador of South Africa to the United Nations in New York. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to address you in my capacity as outgoing Chair of the Commission on the Status of Women, having presided over the 66th and 67th sessions, and we have just concluded CSW 67 and successfully adopted a strong outcome in the form of agreed conclusions. But before I go into that, I just want to recognize the importance of WSIS, the importance of issues it continues to work on for the developing world. The 11 action lines are as relevant today, even though the context has evolved, as we've heard. And all the action lines were part of the rich discussions that we had at CSW 67, with a focus on gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. And we look forward to the WSIS Plus 20. The focus of the session, of the 67th session, was on the priority theme, innovation and technological change and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. So there are clear links to the mandate of this commission and the scope of this current session. CSW has a long tradition of cooperation with our sister commission on science and technology for development. And I'm happy to continue building on this tradition. And I was very pleased that the CSTD chair, His Excellency Ambassador Louis Chikuhiara Chil, was able to participate in our first ever interactive dialogue with youth representatives during CSW session a few weeks ago. The CSTD chair addressed the underrepresentation of women and girls in science, technology, and innovation, as well as the centrality of SDG 5 to the mission of CSTD. I welcome the chair's call to work together to achieve gender equality in the science and technology and build a brighter future for all. Dear friends, let me now return to CSW 67 and give you some highlights and reflections from the session. According to preliminary figures, we had high levels of in-person attendance following the last 2 years where we had COVID. We had over 7,000 participants from governments, intergovernmental organizations, UN system, civil society, and youth. And it was all in New York. We had 5 heads of states and governments, 6 heads of states and government, 105 ministers, 36 vice ministers, and 49 intergovernmental organizations, NGOs, and UN systems organization making statements during the session. During the 2 weeks of the session, 200 official side events took place. And in addition to approximately 700 NGO parallel events. From this wide variety of stakeholders, we clearly had the voices calling for action to place women and girls at the center of the digital revolution and to close the gender digital divide, a mindset that Amandeep spoke about earlier, the gender digital divide. As outlined in the SG's report to the session, the digital revolution presents unprecedented opportunities for women and girls. At the same time, it has also given rise to profound new challenges, compounding gender inequalities in severe ways and leaving women and girls behind. The integration of gender perspective in technology and innovation is therefore crucial to the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Sustainable Development Goals. CSW 67 presented a historic opportunity to set new normative gains on a topic with timely and crucial relevance to the entire world. And I'm pleased to report that the Commission took advantage of this opportunity. As its main outcome, CSW adopted agreed conclusion on the priority theme. This outcome is a significant milestone on gender equality in the context of technology, innovation, and education in the digital age. It is a result of a shared commitment among member states, but I also have to say with the involvement and indeed strong involvement of civil society. In the agreed conclusions, the Commission reaffirmed the importance of women's and girls' full, equal, and meaningful participation and leadership in science, technology, and innovation. It also expressed grave concern about the continuity and interrelation between offline and online violence, harassment, and discrimination against women and girls, and condemned the increase of such acts. The Commission recommended a wide set of actions for governments and other relevant stakeholders, and they can be summarized in the following thematic areas: prioritizing digital equity to close the gender digital divide, leveraging financing for inclusive digital transformation and innovation towards achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls, fostering gender-responsive digital and science and technology education in the digital age, promoting the full, equal, and meaningful participation and leadership, as well as full employment of women in technology and innovation, adopting gender-responsive technology design, development, and deployment. And I think in this afternoon's side event, there was quite a bit that demonstrated the importance of design of the algorithms that can either perpetuate or deepen existing stereotypes. But in this context, in the context of this afternoon, it was for the developing countries. Strengthening fairness, transparency, accountability in the digital age. Enhancing data science to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. And lastly, preventing and eliminating all forms of violence, including gender-based violence that occurs through or is amplified by the use of technology. I'm pleased of this contribution to the global normative framework for gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. We are now looking ahead at several crucial UN events and processes related to technology, innovation, and digitalization. And we've been discussing those this afternoon, and the need to make sure that there's coherence amongst those UN processes. This includes this current session of CSTD, the STI forum, which I spoke about on the first day, and I am co-chairing with the permanent with the ambassador of the UK, as well as the future Global Digital Compact, and we've been discussing that as well, which is an input into the Summit of the Future. And again, we've heard of other processes that are occurring in this space. My hope is that the CSW 67 outcome can inform these processes and contribute to the gender perspective and gender responsive implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We must integrate a gender perspective in our work and outcomes. And I was very pleased to hear this so well articulated yesterday afternoon in this very room by Alice Abro, who is a member of the CSTD Gender Advisory Board. So we must continue to work together to achieve gender equality and ensure that no woman or girl is left behind in this digital age. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Joyini, for your remarks. I am convinced that we are going to work in this direction. Our two commissions have also had very good relationship, and we are going to continue that. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Johan Ekerhult from the Permanent Mission of Sweden in Geneva to brief us on Global Digital Compact consultations. Mr. Ekerhult will be speaking on behalf of Her Excellency, Ms. Anna-Karin Ennerström, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Sweden to the United Nations and co-chair for the Global Digital Compact consultations. Mr. Ekerhult, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. I have the pleasure to give you an update on the Global Digital Compact on behalf of the co-facilitator, the Swedish Ambassador, Anna-Karin Ennerström. She and her colleague, Her Excellency Clave Gatete, would of course hope to be here today, but couldn't due to other commitments. But of course, both co-facilitators visited Geneva for the WSIS forum and had meetings with a wide range of stakeholders and digital policy actors. This visit was a priority for the co-facilitators. The mission here, to which you, the Geneva community, helped, was to learn and to make use of the expertise on digital issues that they know are here. Many of you attended the discussions in one form or another, and for that, the co-facilitators are very grateful. But let me now make a few remarks on the GDC process in New York. The Secretary General outlined his vision on the future of the global cooperation in Our Common Agenda report. One proposal was to strengthen digital cooperation through a global digital compact to be agreed on at the Summit of the Future in September 2024. The GDC is truly an opportunity for all of us to shape a shared vision of digital cooperation. We have heard this mentioned by many on the podium today, both by the tech envoy and by a number of colleagues. But of course, to have a successful outcome, all stakeholders need to be included and involved in the process in a meaningful way. To achieve a genuine multi-stakeholder process, the co-facilitators have arranged several informal consultations throughout the spring in a hybrid format. This is open to member states, civil society organizations, the private sector, youth, and academia. While we are still in the midst of the consultations, one key takeaway so far is, of course, the tremendous engagement and interest in this process, and I think it has been very clearly reflected also here today. The co-facilitators has just embarked on the informal consultations in the form of deep dive focused on 8 themes. They are digital inclusion and connectivity, internet governance, data protection, human rights online, digital trust and security, artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies, global digital commons, and accelerating progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. These deep dives aims to inform, share knowledge, and allow for questions on a wide range of digital issues. The first one, focused on digital inclusion and connectivity, took place this Monday, with, among others, the Secretary General of the ITU, Doreen Bogdan-Martin, as a key speaker. The next one will be held on the 13th of April and will focus on internet governance. I would also like to highlight that the possibility to take part both in the deep dives as well as provide written comments is still very much open. You can still provide written inputs to the GDC, and as mentioned by the tech envoy Amandeep Singh Gill, it is open until the end of April, and you can do it through the homepage. There are already information on those who have provided written input online. And we really encourage you to be part of these consultations, as your perspective is a key as we develop a joint vision for the digital future. Following the deep dives, the co-facilitators will, during the summer, develop an issues paper under their own responsibility that will inform the ministers at the Ministerial in September. The plan is then that negotiations are expected to start by the end of the year or early next year. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eckerhout, for the briefing. I would like now to invite Mr. Cedric Bachholz, Chief Digital Policy and Digital Transformation Section in UNESCO, to deliver the remarks on behalf of Mr. Taufik Jelassi, Assistant Director General for Communication and Information. Cedric, the floor is yours.
Distinguished Chair Peter, Excellencies, dear Under Secretary General and Envoy on Technology Amandeep Gill, esteemed panelists, participants here and online, I would like to extend my gratitude to CSTD, to Shamika, for inviting UNESCO to this event. I also convey greetings from UNESCO's Assistant Director General for Communication and Information, Mr. Taufik Jelassi. I'm honored to address you today to discuss the emerging and future opportunities and challenges presented by ICTs and digital frontier technologies. As a Deputy Secretary General of ITU, Thomas Lemanouskas just mentioned, WSIS has moved a long way, including with the last WSIS forum, and so did the IGF, as Paul Mitchell just underlined too. But if we're honest, we all know digital technologies have even moved faster than these institutions, and we all co-shaped. We launched just 2 weeks ago with MILA, an institute in Quebec with more than 1,000 researchers specialized in machine learning, a publication on AI governance called Missing Links, with many famous authors, including Turing Prize winners with Joshua Bengio, but also Professor Crawford. And I was shocked at the launch to learn that they both said they did not foresee a large language model like ChatGPT coming so rapidly. And these technologies and these technological developments are transforming our societies. They have created incredible opportunities for growth, development, and innovation. However, these advancements also present challenges and risks that must be addressed to ensure that they benefit everyone and do no harm. I wish to address rapidly 3 gaps, which are key to shaping the digital future we want. The first is the digital and knowledge gaps. Secondly, the governance gaps. And thirdly, the capacity gap. One of the most significant challenges we face are the digital and knowledge divides. Last Monday at the multi-stakeholder thematic deep dive for the Global Digital Compact in New York, we discussed in depth the digital inclusion and connectivity with ITU Secretary General Doreen Bogdan opening as a briefer. The tech envoy then underlined in his summary, as he did today too, that connectivity and infrastructure gaps on one hand and the necessary capacity, content, and policy dimension and the gaps related to that on the other hand are two sides of the same coin. We have to address these gaps systematically, strategically, and simultaneously, integrating across this work gender equality approaches and also fighting climate change. The CSDD report hints on how UNESCO, as a lead facilitator of 5 of the 11 WSIS action lines, we are concentrating efforts on these soft components of this gap. We work through our action line facilitation on the access to information and knowledge, on e-learning, e-science, cultural diversity and identity, linguistic diversity, local content, on media, and last but not least, on the ethical dimension of the information society, the chapter 10 of the WSIS action plan. But it is difficult to do justice to all stakeholders and even reflect UNESCO activities in this CSDD report. And I think I will shorten a little bit in view of the time, and we'll go directly, very briefly, to what we're doing in this domain. And even that is not easy to reflect in the CSDD report. In 2014, we looked actually, and we asked all different project managers in UNESCO, what are you doing to implement the WSIS outcomes? And altogether, 660 projects were earmarked across the world in different as implementing WSIS outcomes. So summarizing this on CSDD reports is a difficult task, even more as digital has become more and more prominent. But I wanted to on the digital divide and knowledge divide, just underline one activity, our work on Rome X and the Internet Universality, the dynamic coalition of the IGF, where we're working forward in 44 countries. Now, we know that these digital and knowledge divides exacerbate existing social, economic, political, and gender inequalities and pose threats to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. But secondly, in addition to the digital and knowledge divides, we need to address gaps relating to risks, to governance and regulation gaps. Large language models like ChatGPT have been mentioned in different sessions today. And the awareness is raising in the broad public that in addition to digital and knowledge divides, we must also address the potential risks associated with digital technologies, the human rights concerns on privacy, for example, security vulnerabilities, and ethical dilemmas. Everybody here knows, I think most of you know about UNESCO's AI ethics recommendation adopted in 2021 and the related tools on the ethical impact assessment and the AI ethics readiness assessment. To mitigate these risks, it is essential to adopt good practices and promote a culture of responsible innovation. And today, also on the demands of governments and of companies and of civil societies, also regulation. The CSDD report highlights social media platform issues, points out mis- and disinformation challenges, and the threat of economic models of newspapers. We know how about the impact also on elections and democratic processes and the risks of polarization and division in societies. Many of you joined UNESCO's Internet for Trust conference last month, at which we advanced further on the UNESCO guidelines on regulating digital platforms for information as a public good. The public good part is an important part, as UNESCO stands for the incarnation and is the incarnation of freedom of expression. So it's regulating digital platforms, but for information as a public good. After the event, with more than 4,000 participants, received some 3,000 comments, which are currently being integrated for our next version, where we will consult again across in a multi-stakeholder fashion across different fora. And the aim remains to publish in September 2023. Thirdly, we need to address the capacity building gap, what the tech envoy Amandeep Gill just addressed as mindset changes. UNESCO was delighted to hear from Amandeep how Amandeep stressed the need to move from ICT for development to human and institutional capacities, as one of the points he raised. UNESCO focuses on strengthening the capacities of policymakers based on a needs assessment we made for earlier. And the CSDD report states that the pace of change of technology often exceeds the ability to fully understand the implication and reach consensus on how to shape digital development for the common good and to develop appropriate international norms and national laws or regulations. This is true and cannot be easily changed for several reasons. It is, however, of absolute strategic importance to focus more on empowering the policymakers for digital transformation work. I will cut short a little bit here too on what we did with the Broadband Commission and the co-vice chairs ITU and also others on building the competencies of policymakers in the field of AI and digital transformation, but invite everybody to come and see me if they want to learn more about it, but also about the MOOC we created on AI and the rule of law, which was taken just last year by 4,500 judicial operators. And we included also many regional and national trainings. So these capacity building efforts are key for accelerating the SDGs to achievement and need to be more prominently recognized and supported, and our ambitions need to grow in this domain too. So in closing, I want to close on a positive digital cooperation note. UNESCO fully agrees with the CSDD report's conclusion on the need to revitalize international cooperation in the light of the dramatic changes that have taken place in digital technology since WSIS, also in light of the Common Agenda, the Future Summit, and the Global Digital Compact processes. UNESCO embraces this change, which was highlighted by Mr. Jelassi, our Assistant Director General, at the WSIS Forum discussions on WSIS Plus 20. He stressed the need to reboot WSIS and proposed to mark the WSIS 20 process and event by a new start, calling it actually WSIS 2.0 instead of WSIS Plus 20. The key idea is that we need to move beyond just reviewing the past. We need to reboot the initiative to address current and future challenges. As Ms. Ceremony just highlighted, we have made significant advancements in moving forward the vision of a people-centric, inclusive, development-oriented information and knowledge societies. And as we continue to explore the potential of AI and other frontier technologies, we must, however, be mindful of the need to balance innovation with responsibility, inclusivity, and sustainability. It is our collective duty to ensure that the digital revolution benefits all, and I believe that with a shared commitment to collaboration, good practice, and reducing inequalities, we will be better set to create the digital future we wish for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Cedric, for your remarks. And let me express my appreciation for the Internet for Trust conference, which I followed remotely. It was a great conference, a good start, and I hope it's going to be continued, as well as the efforts on the AI ethics. Thank you again. And now let me turn to our discussant, Mr. David Suter, Managing Director, ICT Development Associates. David, you have the floor.
Thank you, Peter. So I think my role here is to draw on some of the points raised during this session and in other discussions around WSIS 20, WSIS plus 20, and point towards some themes that might be helpful in future discussion without being too provocative or too repetitive. So a few general points first. Looking back at WSIS, and like some others in this room, I was there, the outcomes from that, I think, have come to be seen as foundation documents for the information society, especially the opening statement, which called for a people-centered, inclusive and development-oriented information society. It's become a sort of guiding ethos for much that has followed. But at the same time, I think we're all very conscious that that happened 20 years ago. And times have changed enormously since then in terms of technology and services, in the extent of access and usage and the nature of access and usage of governance, in terms of what is possible and what will become possible for good or ill. And we've learned how very hard it is to predict the trajectory of the information society or of digitalization more generally. All of which I think sets the scene for a 20-year review of WSIS that's due over the next 2 years, a period of great change, but also we can look back to what was and what was, what is, what might be. There's been a lot of assessment of what's happened during the last 20 years, and CSTD's played a big part in that through the 5- and 10-year reviews of WSIS progress, through its annual reports that it's worked on with the Secretary General, and reports on other new technologies as well that have been published every year. Its works involved other agencies that have spoken this afternoon, such as ITU, UNESCO, also DESA. But it actually involves the whole range of UN agencies, as you can see from the Secretary General's annual reports. And I'm glad to have played my part in working with CSTD and those other agencies throughout this period. So reflecting on what's been said today and what you can read in other locations, I suggest there are 4 main questions really in a WSIS plus 20 review, and they're in a sense chronological. So first question would be, how far have we come from the original goals in terms of what we hoped to achieve back then, and also what we didn't then imagine was possible. So how have we moved on from the targets and the action lines that were agreed at the time? What's been accomplished and what has not been accomplished? How have the challenges evolved? Obviously, access and inclusion issues are crucial to this. The second phase, if you like, would be what impact have ICTs and digital technologies had on broader public policy and economic sectors? So what's been the impact of e-government and e-commerce? What's been the impact on health and education? What is the impact on the environment or the fight to combat climate change? What lessons have we learned from exogenous events and challenges like COVID? I'm surprised there's been so little actually said about the COVID experience during the session this afternoon. The third phase, if you like, would be what are the critical challenges that we face today in digital development? And among those that are raised most clearly, I think here and elsewhere, are the continued concerns about inclusion and equality and how that is changing over time, issues of data governance and regulation, the concentration of information technology markets and competition policy around that, hate speech and disinformation, conflict and cybersecurity. And then the fourth and final phase would be, what are the fundamental issues that we foresee looking forward? So special attention, obviously, here to the issues raised by artificial intelligence and machine learning, and the particular hot topic of the last 2 months of generative AI and large language models. So the opportunities, risks, and questions of governance that arise from those are very substantial, and they're distinct from those that the discussions that we've had before. They evolve from them, but they are distinct partly because of the pace and scale of change that's currently taking place. How do they affect that WSIS vision going back 20 years of a people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society? So I think it's clear from the discussion today that all of these evolving issues take place within two contexts. The crucial change that's happened in the last 2 decades, I would suggest, is that ICTs have become fundamental to every aspect of society, economy, and governance. And so they need to be treated multisectorally, drawing on experience in all of those other sectors that are affected by them. That's a real change from 20 years ago, when that fundamental significance of ICTs was an aspiration, not a reality. So the SDGs are obviously fundamental here, and the SDGs are facing implementation difficulties. So are the individual broader challenges that can be identified within them. Some mentioned today being climate change and its related environmental issues of pollution and resource depletion, gender equality and equity, conflict management and conflict resolution. Digitalization is embedded in all of those challenges now in a way that it wasn't 20 years ago. And there are also far more fora today in which those challenges, both of digitalization and of its impact, are being discussed. Obviously, of central importance are the initiatives that have emerged from the Secretary General's office, so the digital roadmap, the Global Digital Compact, which is currently under development, the forthcoming Summit of the Future. And it does seem to me that a review of experience since the UN last focused at this level on these issues, which was in 2005, a review of that experience clearly has an important contribution to make to those Secretary General's initiatives. As I was thinking about this, I was reflecting on something else I worked on a decade ago, which was the review of the Earth Summit 20 years on from the Earth Summit of 1992, which was also, I think, really centrally important to thinking forward about sustainability. So I'll conclude by drawing out 5 themes, which I think have been prominent in the discussion so far and are likely to affect the structure and scope of a review. These are broad general themes. So first, the pace and scope of change. Digital development is much faster than was anticipated at the time of WSIS. That's affected the ability of governance, institutions, and all stakeholders to respond to it. It's accelerating and it's unpredictable. So it raises questions about the meaning of that WSIS vision going forward, of how we shape the information society for the common good. My second theme would be that digital development can no longer be separated from non-digital development. So the impacts of what is digital on other aspects of economy and society are fundamental and central now, and therefore need to be considered from the perspectives of all sectors, economic, social, and other sectors. And this obviously feeds into the Summit of the Future, which is not confined to our sector here or to new technology, but to the whole of the UN system and its responsibilities. My third theme would be that the discussions made clear how important inclusion and equality remain to considering the information society now and in the future, though the meaning of inclusion and equality is changing. We know that digital development can enable more equality, but we also know that it has and can increase inequalities of power and income. So there are still digital divides at global, regional, and national levels. There are also digital divides within countries and regions, within communities, within societies. And many have emphasized the need for particular attention to be paid here to issues of gender equality and to the rights and opportunities of vulnerable social groups. So my fourth theme would be that the discussion has made clear that shaping the information society along the lines desired at WSIS, along the lines in the new context of the Global Digital Compact, is going to be very complex and challenging, partly because of the pace and scope and scale of change, which I've already mentioned, but also I think because of the new technologies that are now coming on stream. Again, I'd refer to the discussions of the last 2 months around large language models and generative AI, which are essentially about the future relationship between human society and digitalization, and the relationship between the human and the digital. It raises a whole range of new governance issues in which international dialogue and cooperation will be crucial, and perhaps even new paradigms. So my fifth and final draw out from the discussions and from the last 20 years, I think is positive in a sense, and it's this. There is an enormous range of evidence to draw on, and there wasn't back in 2003 and 2005. We have 2 decades of reports from UN and other agencies, many of which are cited in the Secretary General's annual reports, 2 decades of reports from CSTD on different aspects of ICTs and other technologies, and a huge wealth of expertise and views from the multi-stakeholder community that's been fundamental to the WSIS process. So governments and international organizations, the IGF and the WSIS Forum, businesses, both digital businesses and businesses that make use of digital technologies to do other things, increasingly diverse technical communities, all kinds of civil society experience too of ordinary users and non-users. And I think 2 things are necessary in drawing on these. Again, I think these have been mentioned here today. One is drawing substantive material from those sources in a cohesive and coherent way, partly to help, well, partly for its own sake, because that's important, but also to help participants in the discussions that we're about to have by clarifying the issues, clarifying what's been said about them, focusing on those that are most crucial. So drawing attention to the most critical issues. And the other that I mentioned is diversity. So drawing on evidence from all regions and countries, not just those that are most powerful or most vocal. From all sectors, not just the digital sector, and from communities of all kinds. So that's a challenging task, but I think there is material there and it can be proactively sourced in ways that will help to build on what's gone before in a way that enables the WSIS Plus 20 review to contribute to what happens in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Thank you especially for the optimistic outcome of your assessment. I just want to mention that I happened to reread the 10-year report on the WSIS Plus 10, and I found it extremely forward-looking. And I was struck by the fact that most of the technologies we are talking about now have been already mentioned in this report. And I am really very sorry that the famous 70/125 resolution didn't take these technologies into account. Probably we would have a different conversation now. Thank you again. Now I think we are going to have a 2-minute technical break. We are going to rearrange the podium and we are going to continue the discussion. Thank you.
As permanent representative of Peru and chair of the 26th session of the CSTD, it's a privilege to continue this ministerial segment. Before continuing with our agenda, let me underscore some key issues that have been discussed during previous sessions. For example, we had very interesting presentations on ensuring safe water and sanitation, a challenging session on data protection and data empowerment. Also a ministerial roundtable on technological opportunities for a low carbon world. I would like to mention very interesting side panels about the implications of artificial intelligence AI and AI value chains. The issue of ethical issues emerging, including the rest
Thank you, Your Excellency. I would like to have the ministerial interventions. As we have many speakers, I would request the interventions to be kept at less than 10 minutes for in-person interventions and 5 minutes for remote interventions. So first, let me turn to Her Excellency Ms. Paula Pierini Lazarte Castillo, Minister of Transport and Communications of Peru. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
She was the second, says. She was the second.
Yes.
Science, technology, and innovation policy of the government of the Gambia, which is designed for 2013 to 2022, which is also followed by a more robust policy on ICT for development statement for 2018 to 2028. This reflects the government's unwavering commitment to development driven by technology advancements and impactful innovations. The government of the Gambia continues to invest in results-driven science and technology initiatives in collaboration with its development partners. The Gambia's prominent role in the implementation of World Bank-funded African Centers for Excellence program, which focuses on human capital development in STEM, is a clear indication of the government's commitment for advancing science and technology. The rollout of the A submarine cable in 2012 and the deployment of the fiber national backbone fiber infrastructure helped strengthen the infrastructure foundations to advance science, technology, and digital transformation in the Gambia. By creating a standalone ministry responsible for accelerating the digital transformation process, the government has shown foresight and commitment to leverage digital technologies to transform lives and reap the digital dividend in the Gambia. Chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Furthermore, the government of the Gambia has plans to create technology hubs across all regions in the Gambia to spur research, development, and ensure an economy that thrives on technology and innovations. The establishment of tech hubs will be informed by the conclusions of feasibility studies done in 2022 by the consultancy arm of the University of the Gambia. Given its strategic position in the sub-region, the government of the Gambia is also prioritizing infrastructure development initiatives that provides a solid foundation for rapid digitalization and attract direct foreign investment. The establishment of the new University for Science, Engineering, and Technology in 2022, with the support from the World Bank and other development partners, is in line with the government's commitment to produce top-notch, locally trained professionals in STEM. This is also in line with the strive geared towards creating more employment and employability opportunities for the Gambian, mainly youthful population. This will also include a digital economy. This will also ensure an inclusive digital economy in medium and long term. More importantly, in line with the strive aimed at inclusiveness, the government also continues to prioritize the rollout of targeted training programs for women and girls and persons with disability on digital technologies. The strengthening of their skills will give them the much needed impetus to fully participate and thrive in the fourth industrial revolution. The tech hubs will also help enable the transformation of rural economies and the development of critical sectors in those areas like education, health, and agriculture. The mainstreaming of digital technologies in these areas will help boost up productiveness and help address legacy issues, including access to market for farmers. Finally, given its strategic position in the region, the government of the Gambia is prioritizing digital infrastructure development initiative that would provide the solid foundation for rapid digitalization and also to serve as a major seductive attractor for foreign direct investment. The establishment of a second submarine cable, the rollout of a national integrated payment gateway, and the deployment of a Tier 4 data center, all are initiatives that have potentials to significantly accelerate the Gambia digitalization transformation. We therefore believe that with this increased focus and requisite support from our development partners, the Gambia will achieve its science technology advancement objective. Chair, distinguished participants, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Bass, Deputy Permanent Secretary. You have delivered the speech on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy of Gambia. Thank you again. Now I turn to Her Excellency Ms. Paula Pierina Lazarete Castillo, Minister of Transport and Communications of Peru. Madam, you have the floor.
Excelencias, ministros, embajadores, damas y caballeros, buenas tardes. Quien se dirige a ustedes es Paola Lazarte, ministra de Transportes y Comunicaciones de la República del Perú. La inclusión es el resultado más ambicioso que el potencial transformador de las tecnologías de la información y comunicación brinda a las sociedades para nuestro desarrollo. Estar incluido significa contar con las mismas oportunidades y esta condición de uniformidad. Se hace imprescindible para la construcción de una convivencia armoniosa en una sociedad de paz. En las últimas décadas, el desarrollo acelerado e imparable de las TIC ha impulsado sustancialmente la productividad de las industrias digitales de alcance global, así como de la calidad de vida de nuestros ciudadanos y ciudadanas. Las TICs nos ofrecen hoy nuevas oportunidades de inclusión social en nuestras regiones, así como mecanismos emergentes para afrontar los problemas públicos de forma transversal sobre la base de la conectividad y la tecnología. A pesar de este común entendimiento, las brechas digitales persisten, principalmente en países en desarrollo con una concentrada distribución de infraestructura de conectividad territorial y digital, la cual mantiene a miles de millones de ciudadanos no conectados y ajenos a estas oportunidades de desarrollo e integración social. La profundización de la digitalización puede exacerbar estas brechas. En tal sentido, uno de los retos más urgentes para países de desarrollo como el Perú es el de encontrar nuestro lugar en el avance tecnológico emergente y en cómo construir desde el enfoque multi-stakeholders, consensos y visiones compartidas de un futuro común. En esa misma línea, vale reconocer a las mejores prácticas que de forma local o global vienen siendo centrales en atender los riesgos asociados con el desarrollo de las tecnologías digitales. Desde la esfera global, la deliberación multilateral promueve la cooperación, las coaliciones y las medidas apropiadas para la defensa de los principios del Internet, que queremos, libre y abierto, que permitan el acceso a la información y a la transparencia de los gobiernos. Asimismo, que se permita que nuestras voces sean escuchadas y nuestras ideas tomadas en cuenta. Por otro lado, desde la esfera local o nacional del Perú, promovemos el diseño y la implementación de políticas públicas sobre la base de evidencia y centradas en el bienestar del ciudadano. En meses recientes, nuestros mayores esfuerzos se encuentran en cuantificar la brecha de infraestructura y servicios de telecomunicaciones para tomar medidas concretas, focalizadas y orientadas al cierre de brechas de conectividad en el país. Asimismo, apostamos por intervenciones de aprovechamiento tecnológico y carácter social, como por ejemplo, con las redes dorsales de fibra óptica del Estado mediante el uso eficiente del espectro radioeléctrico, mecanismos innovadores de incentivos para el despliegue de infraestructura y el aprovechamiento de las innovadoras tecnologías de conectividad satelital. En dicha línea, tanto los países y la comunidad internacional pueden y deben reforzar los mecanismos de coordinación, transferencia de conocimiento y cooperación, así como promover activamente el debate de múltiples partes interesadas a niveles locales, regionales y globales, incluyendo el problema de los no conectados y los riesgos de las tecnologías emergentes que involucran la gobernanza de datos y el uso ético de la inteligencia artificial. Complementariamente, la conectividad significativa, la inclusión digital y una agenda común coherente con los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible tienen que continuar siendo promovidas y financiadas a nivel global. En ese sentido, el Pacto Global Digital, instituido por el Secretario General de las Naciones Unidas en el reporte de nuestra agenda común, es el mecanismo más próximo a estos esfuerzos compartidos, siendo un proceso en marcha hacia la cumbre del futuro del 2024. Señoras y señores, muchos de los retos a los que nos enfrentamos hoy, desde los conflictos por la hegemonía geopolítica hasta el cambio climático y la inseguridad alimentaria, se dan en un contexto internacional determinado y con discriminaciones estructurales. Permítame referirme a una de ellas, la discriminación en perjuicio de las mujeres y las niñas por el uso de las tecnologías digitales basadas en datos incompletos y algoritmos mal diseñados. Como lo mencionara el secretario general Antonio Guterres hace unas semanas, la brecha digital de género se está convirtiendo rápidamente en la nueva cara de la desigualdad de género. Alrededor del 63% de las mujeres tienen acceso a Internet. Hoy en día, frente a un 69% de los hombres. Y si analizamos esta situación específica en las zonas rurales de países en desarrollo, la brecha es aún peor. Asimismo, los espacios en línea no son seguros para las mujeres y las niñas que han sido atacadas, señaladas o denigradas en Internet. Y las regulaciones sobre los cibercrímenes en nuestros países no contemplan castigos ejemplares para las autoridades o autores de la violencia en línea contra mujeres y niñas. En este sentido, proponemos que la innovación, la tecnología y la educación en la era digital, y de manera específica las discusiones en esta comisión, promueva la adopción de acciones concretas para atenuar estas desigualdades de género, promoviendo y atendiendo las recomendaciones de las Naciones Unidas que promueven la educación y la formación en competencias digitales para mujeres y niñas, así como algoritmos que se alineen con los derechos humanos y la igualdad de género. En esta sesión número 26 de la Comisión de Ciencia y Tecnología para el Desarrollo, bajo la presidencia peruana, me complace especialmente haber podido comprobar que dos altas autoridades del sistema de Naciones Unidas que tienen que ver directamente con estos temas son mujeres. La secretaria general de la UNTAC, Rebecca Greenspan, y la secretaria general de la Unión Internacional de Telecomunicaciones, Doreen Botman-Martin. La agenda de la Cumbre Mundial sobre la Sociedad de la Información en Túnez reconoció que su vocación central es transitar de los principios a la acción. Marchemos hacia ese camino, adoptando medidas concretas para eliminar las brechas de género, y con 2 mujeres a cargo el éxito está asegurado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I couldn't agree more. Thank you for your thoughts. Now I turn to His Excellency Mr. Tulagano Segoko, Minister of Communications, Knowledge and Technology of Botswana. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. And let me start by recognizing Honorable Minister of Excellency. Chair, Botswana has been an active participant of the World Summit on Internet Human Rights from its inception as a special in purpose and summit in 2003. The country continues to implement the WSIS Plan of Action as it relates to communication infrastructure development, access to knowledge, capacity building, as well as building an enabling environment. Botswana's efforts in pursuit of the foregoing respect lines have been recognized by the International Telecommunications Union. The latest recognition came during the just concluded Forum 2023, held in the leadership from the 13th to the 17th March 2023. There was one of the champions of visit and recognition of a connect in the leadership in advancing the employment in time. But Chairman, I think with the background, let me turn to the challenges that the planet faces. Chairman, providing universal broadband internet connectivity continues to be a challenge for this one. There are still communities that lack the basic quality internet. I say that noting Chairman comments that were made by Thomas about the 12% speaker. And I can recognize the Thomas efforts as well in that respect. Where we are essentially connected to the connection every second number to the population of 500. But we still have not contained the target yet. And hoping to attain it. Our public government services are still prominently offline, but the government is a large driver of economy. Our potential to harness and leverage big data is still limited by capacity constraints, particularly development. Of course, this means that our artificial intelligence likewise limited. We do have a limited research and development budget in terms of the development of locally relevant and a significant challenge, the challenge globally that of cybersecurity and data security negatively impact our ability to update wire these allow develop to access. Kevin, I haven't articulated some of the challenges that we face. I wish to discuss some of the opportunities that we see. And these include our services that have been positively impact the cost and ultimately leads to go to the growth of our GDP, leading to the diversification of our economy, away from the of our economy, such a moment. We further see opportunities of much needed employment, well, young and educated labor force, and a potential driver for the efficiency of other sectors. And I think it's important here to comment anyone that this era now, it seems that cannot solve the digital divide for the business technology and sector. Then there are opportunities in increased development of data centers and potential to assist with elderly health monitoring and assist college health, but more broadly in the key health. We note that there are some good practices that can help address some of the risks that we have. Challenges that we face, really continuing the capacity building initiatives that we have. To leverage on the special community institutions to drive the upskill and reskilling people to remain relevant for and the development and adoption of the data policy. Then I wish to, in conclusion or moving to my conclusion, talk to some of the issues that I feel that the CFCD can do to enhance the support including data governance. And I commence by making note of the fact that the CFCD should advocate more strongly for changing internet governance model. And you're aligned primarily the right and a single entity, single administration that places control of the global internet facility. One and I really important statement that the rescue government the establishment of the global fund for digitalization with some other. Then I want to note that globalization can prove to benefit the early adopters, the Vietnam late comers, and the global conflict they all over the world. That consumer contribution to development as a market they play. And in this respect, when I think that more or less we can reference benefit of doing those that provide efficiency with they have access, but are not contributing very much to the development of it. And finally, I want to say that the CSCD would advocate for countries that are still lagging in development of data privacy and protection legislation to fast-track these legislations that and other. Chairman, I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your intervention. Since we had some sound issues, I would like to ask you to send your intervention in written form to the Secretariat in order that those who couldn't really get everything could read it. Thank you again. Now let me turn to the other speakers. I would like to ask them to be short because we still have one item. So I'm turning to His Excellency Mr. Ferdinand Manirakisa, Permanent Secretary of the Minister in charge of ITC, speaking on behalf of Her Excellency Mr. Leokadaya Lakaibashe, Minister of Communications, Information Technology and Media, Burundi. The floor is yours.
Excellence, Madame Secrétaire Générale de la SKINSED, Excellence, Monsieur le Secrétaire Général adjoint de l'IIT, Madame la Directrice, Division de la Technologie et de la Logistique, SKINSED, Monsieur l'envoyé spécial pour la technologie et du Secrétaire Général des Nations Unies, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Messieurs, Madame, distingués participants, bonjour, bon après-midi, bonsoir, indépendamment de votre région géographique. C'est une joie pour moi d'être parmi vous à ce jour au nom de Madame Excellence, le ministre de la Communication, des Technologies de l'Information et des Médias du Burundi, dignement empêché, et à mon nom propre, à l'occasion de cette présente session sur les progrès réalisés dans la mise en œuvre et le suivi des résultats du sommet mondial sur la société de l'information au niveau régional et international. Le développement numérique par la transformation numérique est devenu de plus en plus important depuis le déclenchement de la pandémie de COVID-19 et diverses agences des Nations Unies et d'autres parties prenantes ont aidé les pays dans leurs capacités respectives en s'appuyant largement sur la composante numérique. Les progrès dans la mise en œuvre des lignes d'action de CMSI au niveau régional et international sont essentiels pour le développement socio-économique durable et le Burundi qui est à collaborer avec tout le monde pour s'assurer que nous y parviendrons. Le blocage du COVID a clairement illustré que la disponibilité de produits et services numériques ont permis aux citoyens, aux travailleurs et aux étudiants de répondre à leurs engagements et besoins quotidiens. La capacité à tirer parti de progrès réalisés dans la sphère numérique a été un facteur important dans la résilience obtenue pendant la pandémie et elle sera essentielle, voire déterminante, alors que nous remettons de cette crise de COVID-19. La fracture reste un défi majeur à relever dans notre région africaine. Et pour y remédier, il nous faut des investissements massifs afin de permettre à l'ensemble de nos populations à avoir accès aux infrastructures large bande et abordables. Permettez-moi de me relayer l'appel du secrétaire général de l'Union africaine des télécommunications lors du sommet mondial de l'IIT sur le forum de la société de l'information 2020-2023 à Genève du 13 au 17 avril 2023. Le secrétaire général de l'IAT, John Omo, a appelé au déploiement urgent d'infrastructures numériques modernes, à une connectivité et un accès amélioré aux zones rurales et à l'adoption universelle de l'identification numérique. Et pour y parvenir, il en va de notre capacité à rassembler des acteurs publics et privés pour accélérer les progrès dans les domaines de la santé, de l'éducation, de l'action climatique, de l'innovation et des infrastructures et tous les autres domaines liés aux objectifs de développement durable des Nations Unies. Mesdames et messieurs, distingués participants, comme le reste des pays de la sous-région, le Burundi se réjouit des progrès réalisés dans la mise en œuvre et le suivi des résultats du sommet mondial à travers le forum du SMSI et le groupe des Nations Unies sur la société de l'information, qui sont d'excellents exemples de mécanismes interinstitutionnels existants dans la collaboration numérique pour le bien social. Des initiatives telles que le référentiel d'inventaire des femmes dans la technologie du CMSI, l'alliance multipartite du CMSI sur les TIC et les personnes âgées et les jeunes militants du CMSI incarnent l'esprit du forum du SMSI. Il cherche à garantir que les TIC soient distribués aussi largement et équitablement que possible. Le forum du CMSI est un exemplaire en rassemblant des personnes du monde entier avec l'objectif simple mais puissant qui est de partager de bonnes idées sur des moyens pratiques d'apporter les avantages de la société de l'information aux gens du monde entier. Je suis fier du rôle important que joue l'IIT dans la facilitation et la mise en œuvre des résultats du SMSI et des ODD. Mais il s'agit d'un effort collectif et je remercie tous nos partenaires et les agences des Nations Unies et en particulier la SNESED qui travaille en étroite collaboration avec nous dans la mise en œuvre du processus du SMSI. Le Burundi reste attaché à ses engagements et répondra toujours présent comme partie prenante des différents travaux de la CSTD relatif au semestre. Aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, les mots-clés sont la collaboration, la coordination et la coopération. Renforçons donc ce qui nous unit et travaillons plus étroitement ensemble au niveau national, régional et international pour continuer à aligner le processus du SMSI sur les ODD à remplir. L'importance de cette coopération multipartite est au cœur du processus du SMSI et avec son programme interactif, inclusif et de grande envergure, le forum du SMSI a donné vie aux nombreux avantages de TIC dans des domaines aussi critiques et divers que l'éducation, la santé, l'inclusion financière, le changement climatique, l'accessibilité, la cybersécurité, les villes intelligentes et bien d'autres. Et cela a été une force motrice dans l'extension de la connectivité mondiale. La vision d'une société de l'information ou de la connaissance où nos populations, indépendamment de leurs milieux sociaux et partout où elles se trouvent, et de pouvoir bénéficier des opportunités que les TIC peuvent apporter. C'est sur ces mots que je clore mon propos. Je vous remercie. Merci.
Merci, Votre Excellence, pour vos propos. On va retenir ce que vous avez dit. And I'm going to continue with the two remaining speakers. I would like to ask them to be really very short. I would like to ask Mr. Edwin Ligo, Assistant Secretary of the Department of Information and Communication Technology of the Philippines. Sir, the floor is yours.
Good day, everyone, and thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. As we all know, technology is strongly tied to information society, and it is easy to lose focus on technology as a singular factor. When we talk about addressing the digital divide, it is not enough to ask how many satellites we are going to build or how many computers we are going to deliver. Rather, we must continue to ask how we can make government services more available in this digital era of connectivity and computers. We have recently made significant strides towards the passing of the e-governance act. Once passed into law, it will help expedite the digitization and digitalization of government services, making the government more accessible to its people. I firmly believe the challenges are actually only missed opportunities. The Philippines is faced with the problems of connecting over 7,600 islands, but we can also use this to explore the use of TV wide space and satellite technology to bring our country together. Currently, we have activated around 4,214 free Wi-Fi sites in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas. In the same context, access to education is a prevailing concern for us, especially to remote areas. Given the Philippines landscape, some students have to go so far to travel for hours on foot just to reach the nearest school. We need to see this as a possibility to use information technology to bring to the school to them. Again, our work does not stop at merely providing connectivity and equipment. We must remember that our people are the most important component in the development of an information society. We must ensure that our students and teachers are both capacitated to use technology in delivering education. Challenges in employment can also be exposed as ICT advantages. More and more jobs became vulnerable to automation and artificial intelligence. Instead of seeing this as a threat, we can again use this as an opening to develop new competencies and generate new jobs in the digital economy. The Information and Startup Act that we passed last 2019 has allowed Philippine startup ecosystem value to reach $2 billion. In this regard, we can see numerous opportunities abound in the information society, opportunities that both the public and private sectors can open to our citizenry. It is without a doubt that we are all bound to face obstacles, many of which we do not even recognize yet. But as long as we remain faithful to the core of public service, which is serving our people, I am confident that we can all stewards in advancing ICT and achieving a people-oriented, inclusive, and development-oriented information society. Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ligo. Especially, I appreciate that you were brief. Now, let me turn to our chair, chair of the CSCD, to introduce the CSCD roadmap for the WSIS Plus 20 review. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Vice President. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this important session during which we will exchange views about how the CSTD should contribute to the review of the outcomes of the World Summit on the Information Society. That will culminate in 2025. To support that conversation, I am pleased to to present to you the roadmap that the last session of the Commission requested to the CSTD chair to submit and that has been circulated to member states. As you know, the General Assembly decided at the end of the WSIS plus 10 review that a high-level meeting on the overall review of the implementation of the outcomes of the WSIS will be held in 2025. The specific modalities in which the CSTD will inform the discussions at the General Assembly have not been decided yet. However, based on the precedent of the WSIS plus 10 review and considering the role that the CSTD has performed for almost 20 years as the focal point in the system-wide follow-up of the WSIS, as mandated by the ECOSOC and the General Assembly, the Commission can be expected to make a major contribution to the WSIS plus 20 review process. For the last 2 decades of intense technological change, the WSIS process, including its emanations such as the Internet Governance Forum, the annual WSIS Forum, and the activities of the various action lines, has been the leading global effort to build a people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society. The CSTD has been deeply involved in the WSIS process from the outset, leading the system-wide follow-up of the WSIS outcomes as mandated by ECOSOC and the General Assembly. In addition to the annual reports of the Secretary General on progress made in the implementation and follow-up of the WSIS outcomes, the exchange of experiences and views in the annual sessions and the annual resolutions submitted to ECOSOC, the CSTD was a key player in the 10-year review of 2015. At the time, CSTD provided a major input into the overall review undertaken by the General Assembly. As we turn toward the WSIS 20-year review, the same exercises ought to be carried out by CSTD. In addition to stock-taking the level of implementation of WSIS outcomes, the CSTD's WSIS plus 20 review may consider long-term and macro-level changes that the information society has gone through over the past 2 decades, and the implications of this for the WSIS vision of a people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society. Before I move on to a brief summary of the content of the roadmap, I wish to underline that this roadmap presents possibilities, not prescriptions. It is open to change in response to circumstances and to input from member states and stakeholders. The final results of any activities undertaken will depend on decisions about the process which are not taken at the CSTD. Rather, ECOSOC and the General Assembly will decide the modalities of the review process. However, the CSTD's input could be crucial in guiding their decisions and lay the foundation for their final and authoritative form. As you can see, the roadmap I have shared with the member states is an ambitious undertaking, considering that the extremely limited resources available to the Secretariat of the CSTD. While ambition is necessary, I must underline that whether the scope and depth of this roadmap can be achieved is dependent on extra budgetary financial support from CSTD member states. A WSIS-specific trust fund managed by UNCTAD is available for that purpose. The first condition for the viability of the roadmap is the definition of the precise role of the CSTD in the 20-year WSIS review. The draft resolution on WSIS to be adopted at this 26th session could, for example, include language by which the ECOSOC would request the Commission to start work on the WSIS plus 20 review and invite the GA to similarly consider the role of CSTD in its overall review. With the WSIS plus 20 review, Only 2 years away from now, the CSTD Secretariat should start working towards it from the second half of 2023. Specifically, it proposes to prepare an ambitious synthesis, examining the global information society 20 years after the WSIS outcomes. The study will explore the dynamic process of change in the information society that have been taking place in technology, in the deployment, access, and use of ICTs, and their impact on development, including in its economic, social, and cultural dimensions, the environment, human rights, and other critical relevant areas. I will also consider how ongoing trends and likely new developments will affect progress towards human development in the future. The first draft of the study will be provided as background for the substantive discussion at the 27th CSTD annual session held in March 2024. The final draft will be made available as final background for the discussions of the 28th CSTD annual session in March 2025. Based on the precedent of the WSIS plus 10 review, the roadmap assumes that the outcome of the discussions at the 28th annual session in 2025 on the 20-year review will be submitted through ECOSOC to the General Assembly as input for the GA's overall review that same year. The synthesis study will include inputs from open stakeholders consultations held between the last quarter of 2023 and late 2024 at national, regional, and international levels. These will engage UN and other multilateral agencies, national governments, the private sector, civil society, and technical communities concerned with the development of ICTs, digital development, and development more generally. Regional consultations will likely be held in the Asia-Pacific, African, and Latin American regions. Member states, WSIS action line facilitators, and other international agencies will also be invited to contribute written inputs to the synthesis study. It is hoped that drawing on thinking from a wide range of expertise and focus areas will enable the compilation and evaluation of diverse forward-looking ideas regarding how the WSIS process is relevant to today's digital transformation. Cooperation and a cohesive approach to these questions is in the WSIS DNA, with its division of responsibilities among the implementing UN bodies and in the annual WSIS reporting by CSTD. The open stakeholder consultations suggested in the roadmap are testament to this spirit of collaboration. This must continue to be a priority. WSIS is no longer the only international initiative working on these issues, and this must be recognized. As the Summit of the Future and the Global Digital Compact continue to gain momentum, it is particularly important that the synthesis study and the WSIS review process work to complement this process. The CSTD's long-standing expertise in this area, thanks to its work on WSIS review, is an asset that this new process should capitalize on and work with. Taking a progressive and prospective approach which looks to the future as well as the present, it is intended that the CSTD's contribution be informed by themes, concerns, and potential outcomes reemerging in the context of other ongoing international processes at the intersection of information, digitalization, and development. This includes, obviously, the Global Digital Compact process and the Summit of the Future. A strong contribution by the CSTD to the WSIS Plus 20 review is crucial. Once again, I must underline that the extent to which the CSTD is able to contribute is ultimately dependent on extra budgetary financial support from member states and non-member states at the Commission. The momentum and motivation for an ambitious CSTD contribution to the WSIS Plus 20 review process, ensuring our information society includes and empowers developing countries, is very much present. Whether the scope and depth of the consultation and analytical activities in this roadmap can match that ambition will depend critically on the extra budgetary financial support that is available to make it possible. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for your dedication to building a people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society. I hope this proposed roadmap will give rise to productive discussions and that we continue to work together to ensure the CSTD continues to be at the center of the drive to ensure nobody is left behind as our information societies and technologies continue to evolve rapidly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Well, let me reiterate in plain words, we need money. And I know it sounds good, but we really need it. We are facing a major challenge. It's a big project. We need consultants, and CSTD and UNCTAD can't finance it. So we need your contributions. Please go back to your capital, talk about it, and we hope to have the necessary funds to finish this project. Now I open the floor for discussion. I can identify UK and Sweden. Nigel, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes. Yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be at the UNCSDD and have the opportunity to speak, especially after what we've heard this afternoon. Some really excellent contributions on the way forward, and that the last intervention from a distinguished delegate from Peru, our chairman, I think sets the stage for where we need to go. I'll confine my remarks to just two areas. First of all, on the comments that we've heard on the Global Digital Compact and the eloquent address that we heard earlier from the technology envoy, I think sets the road forward in terms of that initiative. Certainly the UK, and I know lots of other stakeholders and other governments are committed and involved in the process, including the deep dive and the one on internet governance in a couple of weeks' time. The UK think it's critical that stakeholders engage in this process, and indeed the technical envoy has ensured that a wide array of stakeholders have indeed contributed to the Global Digital Compact engagement. But we also think it's absolutely critical that stakeholders are engaged in the whole process. Yes, stakeholders give an input in terms of their contributions. Yes, it will be stakeholders that implement whatever comes out of the Digital Compact in terms of connectivity, AI, cybersecurity, data governance, etc. But also stakeholders should have a role in the discussions on what finally is in the Global Digital Compact, and we hope that can be facilitated. Going on to the WSIS Plus 10, the WSIS Plus 20 review process. Some of us were around for too long, perhaps, in this area. Again, this is a real opportunity to move forward, and I don't need to repeat what David Souter said, and I think he outlined really the challenges ahead of us. Yes, we need to look back to an extent, to look what we've achieved, to see where the gaps were, but we also need to look forward. We need to look forward to what is coming on the horizon. What new targets, what new goals, what new achievements, what new objectives we need to set ourselves in this area. Yes, we can be ambitious, and to accomplish what Doreen Bogdan-Martin said in the deep dive on connectivity, that everyone should be able to take advantage of these internet capabilities. So, Mr. Chairman, I think looking forward, the UN CSTD has an important role to play. It played an incredibly important role in the WSIS plus 10 process. It's played a very important role in providing us with discussions on connectivity, on AI, and on many other technologies. And we think it has a fundamental role to play in this review process. Yes, of course, we want to support the CSTD in its efforts, and the UK has made a small contribution towards this. And we, of course, encourage others to do so, as the chairman did. Mr. Chairman, with this and with the contributions that the ITU and UNESCO and others will make, we think that the WSIS plus 20 review process will enable us to move forward in this global connected society. Thank you.
Thank you, UK. We have 5 minutes with the interpretation, and we have another 10 minutes for the technical assistance. So I give the floor to Sweden, then Cuba, then the United States, and Palestine. Sweden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the European Union and its member states. A digital transformation must be anchored in the respect for human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Solidarity, inclusion, and empowerment of individuals in the safe and secure digital space represents an important accelerator for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. In this spirit, stakeholders from all parts of the world gathered almost 2 decades ago at the WSIS and committed to the Tunis agenda to work jointly in a truly multi-stakeholder manner towards universal, meaningful, and affordable connectivity. We thank the Commission for Science and Technology for Development for its work in recording the progress made on the WSIS action lines over the years, and the chair of the Commission for his proposed roadmap of the CSTD's work towards the WSIS plus 20 review. The EU and its member states are ready to participate in the review process and share information on its effort, partnerships, and cooperation to develop the multi-stakeholder model of internet governance and the human rights-based and affordable connectivity based on an indivisible, open, stable, free, global, interoperable, reliable, inclusive, and secure internet for all. We would like to stress the continued global relevance of the work carried out at one of the WSIS finest creations, the Internet Governance Forum. Over the years, the IGF has become an inclusive and influential platform for all stakeholders from all over the world, wishing to come together in the spirit of trust and confidence to exchange experience, expertise, and ideas to shape the internet policy landscape. Looking forward, we believe in the potential of the IGF to grow into an always more inclusive and sustainable model. In the spirit of the IGF, we reiterate the importance of ensuring that the consultations in the framework of the WSIS review are consulted in a multi-stakeholder, equitable, and inclusive way, in which views of all stakeholders worldwide, including civil society, academia, science and tech communities, business and other international groups, as well as marginalized groups, are heard and integrated at all stages throughout the dialogue and consensus building. Needless to say, the voice of the youth is also of crucial importance. In addition, while the modalities for the WSIS review still need to be decided by the UN General Assembly, it is important to place the preparations of the WSIS review in the context of other ongoing UN digital initiatives, notably, as has been mentioned by many, the Global Digital Compact and the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Also bearing in mind the ongoing discussions at the UN on key principles in the design of regular institutional dialogue on the use of information and communication technologies. There is a need to clarify, as soon as possible, the role that each process will play. We encourage the WSIS review to make maximum use on the UN IGF and the ongoing multi-stakeholder GDC consultations for gathering input from the multi-stakeholder community to benefit of our common digital future. The EU and its member states are looking forward to the continuation of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sweden. I owe an apology to Mr. Al-Farsi, Head of Science, Knowledge and Technology Transfer Office for Ministry of Oman. He was on my list, however, I had to go to this presentation of the roadmap, but now I give the opportunity to take the floor. Oman, you can take the floor.
Thank you very much, President. السيد الرئيس، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسرنا المشاركة في أعمال الدورة السادسة والعشرون من أعمال اللجنة المعنية بتسخير العلوم والتكنولوجيا لأغراض التنمية، والتي تأتي في إطار الجهود المستمرة لمواكبة المستجدات.
Excuse me to interrupt you. My Arabic is very rusty and we don't have interpretation. So can you continue in English?
Interesting.
Tomorrow morning we don't have meeting.
Okay. Part of the efforts that Oman has undertaken to enhance the collaboration between the private and public sector, and a laboratory on artificial intelligence was established in a university in Sohar in Oman, and this laboratory has won one of the rewards, I think, by WSIS in the mid of March, and it was chosen out of I think there were 900 projects, and it was one of the 72 projects that won the WSIS reward. It's difficult to translate the full statement that I have, so therefore I would like to thank the organizers and wishing the session or the full meeting success, and thank you very much.
Shukran Kathir, Saeed. I would like to ask you to submit your contribution in written form to the Secretariat, and we will make it public. Thank you again. On my list, I have Cuba, but you don't seem to take the floor.
To oblige the auditorium to learn Spanish at this late stage, so we are going to send you our statement for you to publish in the web, and we are going to present our comments on these important issues later. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. USA.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon again, everyone. Yeah, certainly in line with comments previously made about the value of multi-stakeholder participation, importance of the IEGF, and the role of CSTD in the WSIS process. Really, the role of CSTD can't be understated in past reviews, including the annual review, including the 10-year review. Having reports that distill inputs from many action line facilitators, other stakeholders, take stock of progress is really a critical step. And we really need to have that review process in order to inform, consideration of some of the issues that will come after 2025. In general, we think that the plan that the chair has laid out in the roadmap is appropriate and follows the precedent of what we did in 2015. One issue we did have with the roadmap is just a comment that UNGA 7125 did not discuss WSIS plus 20 process. In fact, the outcome document did, as referenced earlier in the roadmap. And I think, as far as UN speak, it's a pretty clear mandate for what's going to happen in 2025. High-level meeting, inclusive of all stakeholders, take stock, will inform what's coming after the 2030 agenda, which is a pretty robust mandate 10 years out for how a process should go. So we think that between that mandate within from UNGA, the existing mandate from ECOSOC that identifies CSTD as the focal point in the follow-up and review process, and really just the precedent. We all know how this process is going to play out. Unlike 2015, we've actually done it before and know the mechanics of it. We would encourage CSTD, like other UN entities, like UNESCO, like the ITU, just to identify with the membership what we're going to do and then do it. If ECOSOC or UNGA later provides additional guidance or something, we will adjust to that. But I think we have it within our mandate and with our ability here to decide what we're going to do and go forward. And we would think that that really boils down to really two things. There needs to be a consultative process to collect those inputs like we do every year, like CSTD has a lot of muscle memory doing from 2015, but again, every year. And then those need to be distilled into a report of the implementation of WSIS over the 20-year period, and then brought back to the commission for discussion before it's presented on to ECOSOC and then UNGA. That's what we've done before. It's what we do every year. I think it's pretty clear that's what we'll do for the 20-year review. And so hopefully we can just agree to that and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, US. Palestine.
Thank you, Chair, Moderator. Briefly, two points. It's really here we are almost sometimes lost during these meetings, and how can we connect all these agencies and organizations together? It's indeed an ambitious work plan for the CSTD. My opinion, 1 year between drafting and the submission is short, as my humble experience as a diplomat for such a huge and big issue. Now we will look at the work plan again. All member states of the CSTD cannot decide, I think, alone on this process. As you know, we are sometimes individual countries speaking here, interventions, but when it comes to a decision on a very big dossier, we have to look at it as a group and negotiate within the group first. Now we have for my case, as State of Palestine, the Arab Group Coordinator here in Geneva, the UN United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. How can we move forward and letting only Egypt, Algeria, Oman, Djibouti, and Saudi Arabia alone? I think this is a huge responsibility on these 5 member states. We will look at it as member states, as Arab group, and we'll revert to you through the member states, Egypt or Saudi Arabia, present here in this room. I thank you.
Thank you. Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor. So we all see that for the review, there is no many time left. And we see that many the UN platforms, like here in the CSTD, we started our preparations toward the meeting in 2025. So to us, we believe that it's appropriate to take advantage of what we have done before. I mean the format of the WSIS plus 10 multi-stakeholder preparatory platform, which successfully operated on the WSIS Forum 2014 in Geneva, where most of the WSIS-related activities take place. And that platform, as we remember, ensured the participation of all stakeholders on an equal footing and enabled the identifications of areas that still require attention and areas of particular difficulty, some challenges. And also we had a chance to prepare a vision for the way forward. So we also want to say that we support the cooperation of UNESCO, ITU, CSTD, and other agencies within their roadmaps towards the preparation for the general review in 2025. And also we think that all the results we can obtain from the process at preparatory platform we can use towards the preparation to 2025. And also we believe that this approach will make a significant contribution to taking stock of the implementations of 2030 agenda, and especially in the light of the relationship between WSIS process and the SDGs, which is reflected in the matrix I've already mentioned today. And in this regard, we also believe that it's worth considering the issue of extending the WSIS mandate at least towards 2030. And also at the end of my speech, while again related with my previous intervention, we don't know the contours and the essence of the process of digital compact. So at this point, I would suggest not to confuse the WSIS process, which is well known to us, with the activity, since we're not discussing the preparations of CSTD for the Global Compact. We are discussing our preparations to 2025 and the overall review. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russian Federation. As far as I know, and according to the Tunis agenda, there is no time limit for the WSIS process itself. So we have a WSIS plus 20 review. Now let me turn to Portugal.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you very much to the chair for his presentation, and also congratulations on your appointment. Well, Portugal aligns itself with the statement delivered by Sweden on behalf of the EU and its member states. And in a national capacity, I would like to add two things. The first one is that we completely agree with the comment made by our colleague from the United States. We think that the process should start as soon as possible. We cannot wait until the end of 2023 or even 2024 to start this report. And also, I would like to say that I do appreciate the remarks of the chair when he mentioned the different UN processes that are taking place. We think that the roadmap could reflect perhaps exactly that, so that we have different UN processes taking place, and that the CSTD, while drafting and preparing its report, could take those processes into consideration to ensure coordination, promote synergies, and avoid, of course, duplication, and also align lines of effort. I would, however, highlight that we also agreed that it's very important to make sure that even if we take, for instance, the GDC process and consultations into consideration, the CSTD work and report regarding WSIS Plus 20 should remain an independent and distinct process. So that's also very clear to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Portugal. Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I would like to thank the chair for presenting the roadmap for the CSTD towards WSIS Plus 20. I think it's, I would say, a similar process to what we have done in the past, and I think there is no need to wait for such a resolution. I mean, let the process go by itself. We will have a resolution by UNGA, I believe, either this year or next year. So let's start running. I like the collaboration happening in the roadmap between UNESCO, ITU, UNDESA, IGF. I hope we had enhanced cooperation to do such consultation and enhanced cooperation, but hopefully this time we can find a solution to how can we operationalize enhanced cooperation. But nevertheless, it's a distinct process. But again, this shows that there is a silence between WSIS and what's happening in in New York with the Tech Envoy and the Global Digital Compact. But we look forward to the outcome, and we remain supportive of the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansour. Yemen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator and Mr. Chair. Indeed, nothing to add after what the distinguished delegates of Palestine has said. I thank you.
Thank you. Egypt.
For giving me the floor, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the insightful presentation. Egypt recognizes the importance of the WSIS process and the related upcoming processes in New York, and is willing to engage constructively in this regard. We support the comments made by the distinguished colleague from Palestine. And in this context, we wanted to highlight the following points. Egypt is of the view that the CSTD outcome with regard to WSIS and STI should highlight the developmental side. And in this regard, we are looking forward to shed more light on Tunis Agenda 2005 and Geneva Plan of Action 2003. And we want also to highlight that CSTD is a technical committee and should focus on technical issues and strengthen the language thereof, and not to concentrate on other fields that may be deeply that they may be discussed with other experts in other United Nations forum. Those are the main points that I wanted to highlight in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Egypt. I just want to reiterate that the mandate of the CSTD is the overall review of the WSIS in the United Nations system. Last but not least, France.
France also aligns itself with the statement made by Sweden in the name of the EU member states. We also agree with what was said by the United States that the process should begin as soon as possible, as we lack time, and maybe that we don't need to wait for a new mandate from UNGA, as already the resolution foreseen a process. Finally, we also think it's important to maintain a reference to the Global Digital Compact, as the CSTD is working in the context of the UN. So it is a UN process. And even though we also agree it is a distinct process, and the CSTD WSIS review needs to stay separate. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was a very useful discussion, and I was happy to hear all these opinions and comments. I would like to reiterate the way I started: money. We need money. We have very ambitious project, which I heard from the floor is supported by everyone. So to realize this project, we need money. So with that, I would like to give the floor to the Secretariat, to Ms. Sirimana. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. Just let me also repeat money. I also want to, at this point, I also want to explain to you how the CSTD budget looks like. We get a budget for CSTD, and it is, we can do only one thing from that budget. It is to bring participants to meetings. The budget doesn't have any other line to hire consultants, to hire staff. So that's the difficulty that we face. So please, so this is an important one. And I think you all mentioned how important it is to work in collaboration with all processes or organizations, like from the Secretariat side. You know, will work, we are working, as you know, very closely with ITU, the UNESCO, and all the other, action lines, organizations, as you see, that they do work with us very closely to contribute to the Secretary General's report. But what you need to do, I mean, we also heard that the need to work with the digital, the GDC, how important for the processes to come together. Now, the processes are led by member states. So we as the Secretariat of the CSTD cannot say now CSTD needs to be participating in the GDC. It's your task. So now, for example, I know that there are these deep dives are taking place now. And so far, we have not gotten an invitation to the CSTD chair to go and present the enormous amount of experience that the CSTD has been gathering doing the WSIS process. Now, I would like to ask, I think we have, Johan, you're here. You're also representing your ambassador, who is the co-chair of the GDC. I think this is something that the member states need to do. And CSTD should be invited to these deep dives. You are going to do the internet governance. CSTD has the whole conversation. It's a very difficult conversation on internet governance. We can showcase the lessons that we have learned. There's an enormous amount of experience was gathered here. If, of course, you couldn't agree because it's a very, very difficult topic. But the process gathered enormous amount of knowledge. And in fact, that was what went into the digital cooperation report. I don't know, there's so many reports written. When the digital cooperation report was written, we could see the cut and pasted material from the CSTD conversation, of course, without recognizing CSTD. So these are in your hands. So member states, please, we ask you to do your bit too. And we will do the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamika. Before closing, let me give the floor to the chair.
Thank you very much. As I have just remarked on in our presentation, the roadmap is an open paper in order to receive all your suggestions, your comments, and your opinions. So let me say that we appreciate a lot all of your distinguished interventions. Tomorrow morning, we're having at 9 o'clock a meeting of the board with the secretary, and you have give us agenda for tomorrow morning. I promise to make some commentaries, maybe at the end of the conclusions on Friday afternoon about the subject we have just take care in this moment. Thank you very much for all. Adjourn.